Why was there an attempt on former President Trump's life? Why is the media and Secret Service now alluding that Iran is behind the attempt? Now do you understand the meaning of my New World Order videos? It is alleged that Trump uncle had possession of Nikola Tesla's time machine, so Trump knows what is to come. But is he trying to stop the New World Order, or is he leading us closer to a New World Order? Is it all constructed to cause chaos to lead the country to a civil war? Is Trump for or against the New World Order? Remember, all of your presidents are related. They all attended the same colleges, the same social clubs, the same events. They all took the same oath.
I will ensure that the future of crypto and the future of Bitcoin will be made in the USA, not driven overseas. I will support the right to self-custody to the nation's 50 million crypto holders. I say this with your vote. I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin. And I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency.
Going to a different economy. And we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
I hope he's turning this way. Be careful, guys.
What are you doing?
Where's that?
Somebody go shot. He's right there. Oh no.
Are we in Butler?
Yes.
What the fuck is going on?
Ross!
Dad, where's Seth?
Oh my God. I don't know where Seth is.
Seth is up his fucking gone.
Fucking sick world.
Dude, that's exactly why we need fucking Trump here.
What the hell?
Oh, fucking Secret Service don't fuck around, man. You gotta fucking get them. Holy shit.
Yeah, look, they're undercover.
Where's Seth on?
That's him laying.
Look at all these predictive programming articles that were dropping just a couple weeks ago. They were shoving this event in our face. What is presidential immunity? The get out of jail free card Biden could use to end Trump's life. Look at this article from USA Today just 3 days ago, July 11th. The Supreme Court's much anticipated presidential immunity ruling didn't just chop out sections of the federal election interference indictment against former President Donald Trump. Legal experts say it also breathed life into what many previously viewed as outlandish legal theories of immunity for taking out a rival and other autocratic behavior. Look at this one from the Huffington Post on July 1st. Supreme Court gives Joe Biden the legal okay to take out Donald Trump, to end Donald Trump's life. Something is wrong when dissenting justices warn that the majority may have just legalized ending one's life. So while many people have pointed out there were hints of Donald Trump being taken out thanks to media like The Simpsons and this Illuminati card game here that was created back in the 90s, where the man on the card does look eerily similar to Trump, the card is named Enough is Enough. The description of this card happens to be, at any time, at any place, our snipers can drop you. Have a nice day. One would think the man on the card would look more similar to JFK given as to what happened to JFK, but for whatever reason, he does look very similar to Trump. So yes, Trump's life being ended while he was president or while he was campaigning was always something that was rumored, something that was always in the air. But like I said, for the past couple weeks, news and media were really hyping this up. They were really talking about it. Continuing to read from different articles, Trump's lawyers argue Biden can end his life. The arguments were stupid to begin with, but one judge's question sealed the deal. What's even more bizarre, there was an article dropped by Spectrum News how Trump makes baseless claim Biden administration wanted to end his life during the Mar-a-Lago search. What's so odd about this article is that this claim was made over 2 years ago. Why are they now just bringing up this claim that happened 2 years ago? And they are making an article out of this in July of 2024. So now, flash forward to today, we have this individual, Thomas Matthew Crooks, who was reported to be somebody who donated to Biden. They found that out immediately. This person who donated to Biden was at this Trump rally firing a couple shots. After a couple weeks of filling us with information, filling us with news articles, how the Biden campaign wanted to take Trump out and how he could legally do so. This is why I always say, watch what news and media constantly repeats. There is a reason why they do so, because they are trying to tell you something about something that's going to take place in the future. Now, this is just crazy to me. You will find these individuals who are behind these very bizarre and weird events that hold a lot of theories. You will find that they'll either be in commercials or movies or extras in some kind of scene. They were actors all along, or there was some kind of patsy, something along those lines. Something always ends up getting revealed. So if you are a person that feels like this whole incident at Trump's rally does not sit right with you, yet you cannot put your finger on as to why, maybe this commercial right here will answer your questions. Guess who is seen in a BlackRock commercial, the same BlackRock organization who has many different theories behind them, being involved in many different events. The same individual, the same man who was accused of causing this incident at Trump's rally. What are the odds indeed?
My name is Brian DeLallo. I teach AP and honors economics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Financial well-being to me is knowing that I can be free to do the things that I love to do. I hope when I retire someday, they say that guy made this place a special place to come to school and gave as much as he could to help the community.
Now, the photo to the right is the photo of a younger Thomas Matthew Crooks that news and media are floating around. But as you can see to the photo to the left, he has the same exact chin, same exact nose, same exact mouth, and the same exact hairline. Even his style of glasses has not changed as well. If that does not convince you, look at the side view of their faces. He has a very unique face. You can see in both photos to the right is the most recent photo of Thomas Matthew Crooks. They both have the same exact chin, and it looks like the person to the left who's in the commercial has an underbite. This is Thomas Matthew Crooks in this commercial here, this BlackRock commercial. He does appear heavier on the right and his hair is longer, but the thing is this BlackRock commercial was taken over a year ago. So a person can go through some physical changes over the course of a year. They can put on weight over the course of a year, and of course their hair can grow out. You can even see here where he's wearing a gray shirt and he has his head turned to the side. Look at his ear. His ear is the same ear as the person in this commercial right here, and they say that no two ears are alike. Given all we know about BlackRock, all the theories behind BlackRock, how they have their hands in all these investments, they own all these businesses and pharmacies, I find it to be a rather big coincidence that the same individual who has been accused behind this Trump incident at this rally, Trump's rally, was seen in a BlackRock commercial. Isn't that such a rather big coincidence? And I don't believe in coincidence. Of course, coincidences exist. Well, I guess if I go to the grocery store and get a chocolate cake, and then later on that day, my wife goes to the same grocery store and gets the same chocolate cake without me knowing, the same exact brand, then yes, that could be a coincidence. But this right here is what I do not believe in. This is all planned. Here is BlackRock CEO Larry Fink meeting with Claudia Sheinbaum just a few months before she becomes Mexico's president. So BlackRock pretty much has their hands in everything. It is really sad how the whole world is a stage. It really is. But there are still many questions to be had here when it comes to the actual incident that took place at Trump's rally, such as what took Secret Service so long to intervene. Secret Service knew they had an active situation on their hands here. Many people in the crowd were yelling out how they saw somebody on the roof, yet Secret Service did not go up on the roof. Secret Service knew this man was on the roof. They were focusing on him. You would think as soon as he would pop his head up to fire off these 8 shots, they would pop him instantly, taking him out instantly, but they don't. The person focusing on this location of the roof waits until the very last minute. Not only that, one would think that Secret Service would rush the stage, taking Trump off the stage soon as they knew they had an active situation. Yet they don't. They let Trump continue to speak, even though they knew they were focused on an individual on this roof. One would also think that the roof that Thomas Matthew Crooks was on would be the roof that was more guarded, given the fact that it was the closest one to the stage. It is absolutely wild to me looking at the map of the distance between the roof and the stage, how this stage was left unguarded by Secret Service. Now look, I do know that Secret Service cannot be in every location at one time, but you would think they would cover the spots that leave Trump vulnerable. But this event is something that has been in the works for quite some time now.
In this event involving Trump. But guys, remember, all these distractions are about the 4th Industrial Revolution. It's to distract you for them bringing in the robots, algorithms, and drones. And we have Justin Sun talking about robot dogs. And if we can get robots to act like humans, they can take over the whole economy, run everything without a human involved. And then we have the New York mayor. These robots won't call out sick, and you can pay them low wages and they'll never complain. Now we have Trump still scheduled for the Bitcoin conference. And guys, we know if he does show up, this is going to set Bitcoin up for a big pump. And then on top of it, you have talks of China talking about lifting the bans. So we know the emerging markets are ready to flip the switch on the 4th Industrial Revolution. But we need that big distraction, that big crisis to move the machines in. And then, guys, we have the Republican convention starts tomorrow. And like I stated, this event, the dates, everything is selected, guys. Remember, you're just watching a movie. Your life is an illusion and TV is your reality. And then that quickly, nobody is talking about Biden's health. Just like that. And we know the sheep stay focused on things that don't matter. And that's the reason why social media is so important to the NWO, because they can change the minds of the masses in seconds. They can't focus. And in the Trump shooting attempt, guys, we're seeing the hoes. This guy was in a BlackRock ad. And guys, if you know you're in an ad, that means you're an actor. And then you have people recording saying, hey, there's a guy up there crawling with the actual rifle. And there's a couple videos. You can't make this stuff up. Guys, you don't need to talk about conspiracy theories. With technology, you get to hear it out the horse's mouth and then also see it with your own eyes. Once we understand how the world really works, we understand that it is all planned out. And it is definitely time for you to wake up out of that sleep, especially in the times that we're in right now. And 2024 is going to be one of our most entertaining years. We have the presidential election. We have the drums are beating. We have the emerging markets going to be flipping the switch on the 4th Industrial Revolution. Now, we had the Fed signal rate cuts, but remember, guys, they haven't cut rates yet. So we know the master magicians are about to set up that distraction. So therefore, they can cut rates while we still have inflation. And in the 4th quarter, once the election is over, we know the movie begins. Guys, they haven't cut rates yet. So like I told you, I definitely see a big pullback in the 1st quarter. Then the master magician set up a distraction so the Fed can cut rates, and then we move on for the next probably month and a half. And guys, don't forget, Reagan started it off. Even when it comes down to the buybacks, yield rates, which are down on Friday, the dollar down on Friday, We have volume in crypto right now is up. And then, of course, guys, we have Tether and USDC. And then we have the Fed. Repo on Friday was $406 billion. Make sure you're pulling that on a daily basis during the week. And we know the Fed is keeping rates higher for longer, so therefore they can destroy this economy. So therefore they can bring in the machines. And guys, what do they need to do in order to bring in the machines? Distractions and a crisis. And one of these distractions, of course, happened yesterday. And we have Trump shot at and then gets up, raises his hand up. Guys, it was like a big movie. We know when you're being shot at, you're getting down and you're running. But that photo is going to last forever. He gets up, raises his hand with a ball fist and says fight. And we know all this is biblical. But guys, you have to go back to Reagan. 1988, The Economist magazine has the dollars burning, and then of course a coin is rising. Get ready for a world currency. And we know that's about to happen. But what's important about that magazine came out when Reagan was in office. And of course, Reagan was nothing but an actor, and the same thing goes for Trump. You can't make this stuff up. And we know Zelensky played a president as an actor and then became a president. Remember, your life is an illusion and TV is your reality. Trump's odds of victory hits an all-time high on Polymarket after shooting. And guys, this event happened on Saturday, and we know today is Sunday. And what are people going to be doing in churches? They're going to be praying for Trump. And we know how the NWO works. They use the sheep's energy in order to create their reality. And we also know Sabbath is on Saturday, not on Sunday. And remember, guys, this is biblical. I told you guys on this back half, we're going to be in a movie. And I know those who are new to this channel laugh and keep it moving. And then you got to come back to the channel because you're like, man, this actually came into reality. And we have the movie has begun. And we also have a lot of holes in this event involving Trump. But guys, remember, all these distractions are about the fourth industrial revolution. It's to distract you for them bringing in the robots, algorithms, and drones. And we have Justin Sun talking about robot dogs. And if we can get robots to act like humans, they can take over the whole economy. Run everything without a human involved.
One of the things that J.D. Vance has signaled is that he's open to the devaluation of the U.S. dollar in order to increase exports. Here, take a look at a quote from Vance earlier in the year. He said, devaluing, of course, is a scary word, but what it really means is American exports become cheaper. So if you look at that, that is a very different approach from the king dollar, strong dollar approach, globalization, free trade that we've seen from Republicans over the course of several decades. And I think it's going to bear some exploration into what a Trump-Vance administration might look like.
And Bloomberg reporters that they say took place in late June, so just a couple of weeks ago, a wide-ranging interview on business and the global economy. So I'm going to run through a few of the highlights here. On the Federal Reserve, Trump said he will allow Jerome Powell, if he's elected, he will allow Jerome Powell to finish out his term, which would run through January 2028. That is, of course, a reversal from previous statements from President Donald Trump. He's saying now, I would let him serve it out, especially if I thought he was doing the right thing. He does say that he's warning the Federal Reserve now to abstain from cutting rates before the election. That's different from what the markets are expecting, but Trump says that that would be something the Fed knows they shouldn't be doing. On taxes, he says he wants to bring the corporate rate to as low as 15% from that current 21% level. He says he told a group of executives recently he wanted to push it to 20%, but now he's saying about 15%. On personnel, you mentioned that Treasury Secretary Hint. He says he'd consider Jamie Dimon, that JP Morgan CEO, chairman and CEO, to be his Treasury Secretary. On tech, he says he no longer plans to ban TikTok. He says he's for TikTok now because you need competition, and he's not thrilled with Mark Zuckerberg. He wants some competition for Facebook and Instagram. Just a couple more here on crypto. It wasn't long ago, Bloomberg notes, that Trump said Bitcoin was a scam and a disaster waiting to happen. Now he says that it and other cryptocurrencies should be, quote, made in the USA. They say he framed it as sort of a practical necessity, that if the US wasn't on it, then China or somebody else would be. Quote, China is going to figure it out, and China is going to have it or somebody else. And just one last one here, Carl, that I want to flag on geopolitics. He was asked about Taiwan, and Bloomberg says that at best, Trump was about lukewarm bid for cybersecurity startup Wiz, which one analyst yesterday called just the tip of the iceberg in a massive M&A cycle for big tech for 2025 if Trump wins. Now, whether Vance actually keeps his anti-big tech stance in a Trump administration, that's certainly an open question, but in the meantime, it could help to rally support among more Silicon Valley leaders, especially those aligned with little tech. His ties go back to Peter Thiel, one of the first major tech figures to throw his support behind Trump in the 2016 election. More recently, Vance has been close to VC David Sachs and a growing circle of tech elites that have been switching camps ahead of the election. Mark Andreessen, Ben Horowitz, they're also planning to donate to Trump's reelection, CNBC is hearing. Keep in mind, though, guys, and you hit on this in the last conversation, anti-big tech and anti-M&A are two very different things. If support is, in fact, building among the VC community, as it looks to be, they still want exits, and they may ultimately prefer returns and liquidity to the politics of it all. Money speaks.
Devaluing the currency, the level playing field. And then we have Kathy Woods always talking about hyper deflation. But we have J.D. Vance sticking to the NWO's playbook. And the next step to tokenization is devaluing this currency so therefore we can get on a level playing field. The United States loses that world reserve currency title, still has power. That's the reason why they're tokenizing these treasuries, but will no longer have the strength. And then on top of it, the surplus is going to be cut out. And that's the reason why Janet Yellen was over there telling China, hey, we don't need all this surplus. Because guess what? The American people are not going to be able to buy it anyway. Remember, high rates for longer is crushing this economy. And Trump says he'll allow Jerome Powell to finish out his term until 2028. And from 2025 to 2028, you're not even going to recognize the old America. Remember, guys, are going to be moving in these robots, algorithms, and drones to take the economy over, pay each other with crypto, and in 2028, the sheep are going to go inside the metaverse. That is Shemitah year. And we have J.D. Vance also connected to the powers that be. And if you have my NWO book, you understand. Peter Thiel, Andreessen, my guy. And remember, Andreessen, my guy, is not the big player. It was his wife's dad was the big player. If you go all the way back to the beginning of my videos, I showed you why I call him Andreessen, my guy. And then we have the good old Ray Dalio. Remember, he always talked about China versus U.S., and that collision would eventually happen, the WW3, so then therefore we can move forward to the new NWO. The world reserve currency falls and the new world reserve currency rise, and we know that's China. And we know Ray Dalio is heavily invested in China.
Oh, people, we are calling them out. We are poking holes in their narrative, and they know it. They know this time they have been exposed. When I talk about they, of course I am talking about the powers that be, certain three-letter agencies, organizations like BlackRock, those who put the scripts together for these events. Yesterday, I uploaded a video titled Shocking Trump Rally Shooting Suspect in a Commercial. Thomas Matthew Crooks, the man behind the incident at Trump's rally, or supposedly the man behind the incident at Trump's rally, was seen in a BlackRock commercial. Now, credit where credit's due, I did not find this commercial. Those who had found this commercial were on platforms like Twitter and Reddit. I just made the video. But as more and more people had noticed and made videos on this subject, word got around, and eventually it got right back to BlackRock. And BlackRock realized they messed up. BlackRock said, oops, we did not pick up all our cookie crumbs, so now the trail is leading right back to us. Upon the realization, BlackRock deletes the 2022 ad featuring the supposed man behind the Trump rally incident, Thomas Matthew Crooks. Even though I know the man behind the incident was Maxwell Yerrick, nobody, and I mean nobody, will make me believe any differently. Now answer me this, when Secret Service popped that man on the roof and they collected his DNA sample, that same day they got a hit back, that hit being Thomas Matthew Crooks. Yet they said Thomas Matthew Crooks has no criminal record. He has no history whatsoever. So how did they get a hit back that quickly, the same day, within hours? Where did they get Thomas Matthew Crooks' DNA from? But anyway, I'm sidetracking. BlackRock Incorporated, the world's largest money manager, and they have their hands in everything. Even the C-19 pharmaceuticals. I mean, they are deep in everything. Has pulled an ad that briefly featured Thomas Crooks, the 20-year-old who supposedly shot and wounded former President Donald Trump at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania. The company did indeed confirm Crooks was a student at Bethel Park High School and appeared in the 2022 ad with other unpaid teens. Thankfully, we have screen recorded that commercial because this New York Post article is trying to make it seem like Thomas Crooks was just caught in the background. He had a brief scene in the background. No, he did not. He had two scenes, and one of the scenes was by himself, and he was up close. BlackRock gave a statement by saying, in 2022, we ran an ad featuring a teacher from Bethel Park High School in which several unpaid students briefly appeared in the background, including Thomas Matthew Crooks. Crooks graduated the same year the commercial aired from Bethel Park High, where he was one of a dozen students who received National Math and Science Initiative Star Awards, according to the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. BlackRock noted that while the ad has been removed from circulation, it is still available for investigators to review and is being circulated on social media. Well, of course, it's still available for investigators to review because almost all of us have recorded that commercial. The article says that today, Monday, BlackRock condemns the incident that happened on Saturday. The article also says that the company did not immediately respond to the Post request for additional comment. Now, the article does end with BlackRock, which oversees an estimated $9.1 trillion in assets, has garnered backlash in the wake of previous shootings in the United States as some of its index funds own shares in gun manufacturers. I was willing to leave the whole commercial thing alone because clearly that was Thomas Matthew Crooks in that commercial. But given the fact that BlackRock had deleted the commercial, they look more guilty than ever. BlackRock stated the reason why they removed the video from circulation was out of respect for the victims, as we really believe that. They just wanted to take the conversation away from themselves, but this does more harm than good for BlackRock. This really does look suspicious now. If we believe that BlackRock has their hand in everything, and I am sure they do, then without a doubt they have their hand in programs such as MK Ultra. These are MK Ultra victims. That it was not Thomas Matthew Crooks on the roof, but Maxwell Yerick. And they are so deep in it now, they cannot change the narrative. So now they have to build a narrative when it comes to Thomas Crooks. Now guess what they are saying? This article by the Daily News was dropped an hour ago. Now they are saying Trump shooter Thomas Matthew Crooks was acting strangely ahead of rally as motive elusive. Isn't that funny? The whole time they were saying there were absolutely no red flags. They don't know why he went ahead and did what he did. They could not find any history on this man. This man has no social media history. And yet, out of nowhere, now he's acting strangely days before what took place at the rally. Isn't that something? Why was he acting strangely all this time after they said he had exhibited no red flags? I don't know. But, like I said, they will slowly build a narrative for this man now. He is a Build-A-Bear narrative. Thomas Crooks was going to be used in another narrative, another agenda. A school pow-pow. This is why his background involved school bullying. He was being picked on because of his clothes. He was a loner. This is the MO of every person that has caused a school pow-pow. Look at the very suspicious interviews where news and media are interviewing Thomas Matthew Crooks' classmates, and they look like they were heavily coached on what to say. This is indeed getting more and more wild, and I wouldn't doubt one bit that that commercial was some sort of predictive programming for that school pow-pow where the suspect was intended to be Thomas Matthew Crooks. There are those of you that are saying, well, if Secret Service took out Maxwell Yerick, then where is Thomas Matthew Crooks? Well, since Thomas Matthew Crooks is no longer of use and he would blow their cover, I am sure he was easily disposed of. So the question should be, where is Thomas Matthew Crooks And where is Maxwell Yerrick? If they are running with the narrative that that was indeed Thomas Matthew Crooks on the roof, then can Maxwell Yerrick step up and give us some proof of life? We have multiple big-time news agencies running articles how it's misinformation to say that Maxwell Yerrick is the man behind the incident. So I am sure Maxwell Yerrick is seeing these articles as well. His name is plastered all over news and media. So can he come out and give a statement that he is still alive? I am willing to eat my words. I am willing to make a video saying that I am wrong. If he can make a statement, come out on video and make a statement that he was not the man on the roof, I will make a video saying I was wrong. There was not one, there were not two, but 3 people were interviewed confirming they heard and seen a second shooter at Trump's rally on July 13th. So we have multiple people, including a radio station, saying there was a second suspect at Trump's rally. So why are these claims being ignored? Why are these claims not being taken seriously? And they all say the same thing. It came from the water tower. I am going to go ahead and play those interviews now.
First crack of the gunfire, and I just screamed, "It's the sniper, it's the sniper," and he was firing down toward the water tower.
That's what we're hearing.
And yeah, and then at that same exact moment, there was a spray from the right side of the stage that I thought was some type of gas.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or not gas, but smoke. To blind,
sure.
You know, blind up front. And he said it was, he heard it was gunfire, hitting the hydraulic on the track. So the gunfire was coming toward the stage.
Wow.
And then a few minutes later, there was a couple more shots down the hill, and that's when they started flooding and pushing everybody out.
Sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here. Now, when I called my husband at home, who's watching TV, he said, I thought Trump hurt his ear when he went to the ground. But he said, no, on TV they showed before Trump hit the ground, the ear was bleeding. So that sharpshooter went across, Trump turned his head, his ear must have been nipped, and it killed somebody in the stands over to the left.
Could you see anyone injured besides the blood on the former president?
All I saw was the gentleman from Beaver County who spoke earlier in the day, who was running for the State House Representative, Elmore, I know his name. He had a white shirt on, and I saw him come from that left stands where the people were mostly shot. I think there were several. They said 3 medevacs left here. Blood was down the right side of his... He wasn't shot, but you could see that he was next to somebody who must have been bleeding profusely, because he either helped them and ran, rubbed against them, or tried to get them help or something. It was covered. So I knew that he was near somebody. That was my first indication that somebody was actually shot, when I saw his blood on his shirt.
Aaron, when did you realize that, hey, this might not be fireworks, this might be something else?
When they got Trump down on the ground. And we were just so concerned that he wasn't hit, because we couldn't. It happened so fast. It's really hard to process it. I guess if you have it on your camera to see the exact minute, you can tell. But when he got up, he did not look bad at all. What I've heard coming out here is now they feel that there was 2 shooters on both sides. So they got the one on the tower on this side, but the one on the right side they never got. So that's why they wanted us to leave immediately, because they thought there's still a shooter out there somewhere. So there could be in these woods around Butler. And I feel sad for our country. I feel sad for everybody, I mean, you don't like the guy, don't vote for him. Don't kill him. We love the guy. We're going to vote for him. I mean, what is up with his violence? I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, I just wish that people that, I'm glad that guy's no longer with us anymore in that tower. And I hope they get the other one too. And I hope they don't nick him. I hope they get him and he's down.
The fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower. There was one by the fence.
And still, obviously, initial reports. But what we do know, according to the
fence where the other shooter was, there was one.
Ladies and gentlemen, I told you that we're not in normal times. World War III, nuclear war is this close. They just fired 5 shots at Trump and hit him in the side of the head. And the media's like, oh, big deal, he survived an assassination attempt. This is crazy town. Biden's a complete puppet. The New World Order is melting down everywhere. And I believe they're getting ready to kill Biden and blame it on a Trump supporter. I've been saying that for over a year. So President Trump in Pennsylvania up there gets shot at, gets hit in the side of the head, survives. That image of him up there with the blood on his face, defiant, is incredible. And now the deep state that's committed all these crimes and opened the borders and human trafficked and started World War III, they are so desperate, they're going to go for broke. But I've told Trump, I've told his campaign, you've got to be more careful. We got to pray for President Trump right now. This is such a dangerous time. I'm in Northern California with what would be a huge story breaking tomorrow, and it's still going to break. Massive story we're working on right now, okay? Secret mission. And it will still break it. But, ladies and gentlemen, this attempted assassination of Trump means we're not in Kansas anymore. And now they've tried to kill him with a gun. They're going to try to poison him. So Trump, inside circle, listen to me. And I know you've listened before. You've had the Secret Service call me. I've briefed them on stuff. Listen to me. They're going to try to poison him now. This blew up in their face. They failed. They fired 5 shots. They killed 2 people, maybe 3. Of course, they got rid of the shooter, so they can't find out who that was. This means the New World Order is going for broke. They have nothing to lose now. Pray for America, pray for Trump, pray for the free press, pray for truth, and know with, 112 days from the election now, anything is possible right now. Deep state, escalation war with Russia, China, Taiwan, it's all on the table. False flag terror attacks, blame it on Trump, his supporters, they've been hyping that. We need to pray right now for mass awakening and mass discernment because America is fighting for its life. I'm about to do a live show as soon as the crew can get into the office. I just got off an airplane.
Trump versus BlackRock. A group of Republican state financial officers gathered last February at a Hyatt hotel in downtown New Orleans to take aim at one of the party's corporate enemies, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink. One panel hosted by Republican Utah Treasurer Marlo Oaks posed a question increasingly uttered by congressional Republicans and prospective GOP presidential candidates in recent months, according to an agenda obtained by the Center for Media and Democracy and later reviewed by CNBC. The panel's description asked, who's more important, shareholders or stakeholders? Is that stakeholder capitalism being sold by Larry Fink and other investors really stakeholder politics? The conference was organized by the conservative-leaning State Financial Officers Foundation, a tax-exempt 501(c)(3) nonprofit group that does not publicly disclose its donors. The group is at the center of a growing network of organizations aligned with pockets of the Republican Party that have grown more comfortable criticizing investing firms such as BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street for what critics call politically motivated investing plans. A year after the panel in New Orleans, incoming House GOP committee chairs and GOP White House hopefuls such as former President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis have put Wall Street's environmental, social, and governance investing policies near the top of their political hit lists. The Senate is set to vote Wednesday on a measure to block the Biden administration from allowing retirement plans to consider ESG factors in their investments. More than a half-dozen conservative groups have helped to drive the criticism of Wall Street's ESG investing methods, and some have little-known ties to longtime conservative donors or lawyers who have aided Trump himself. Members of the State Financial Officers Foundations are all powerful state Republican officials, many of whom have scrutinized ESG practices or pulled back billions of dollars from investing firms. They include Oaks, who last year announced he would move $100 million in state funds from BlackRock to other money managers, and Florida's GOP Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Patronis, who in December said the state treasury would pull out $2 billion in assets previously managed by BlackRock. A representative for the State Financial Officers Foundation did not return a request for comment. Behind the scenes, a larger network of conservative interest groups is helping to fund the organization's events or send representatives to attend. Conservative-leaning groups including the 1792 Exchange, the Heritage Foundation, Consumers Research, American Legislative Exchange Council and Mercator Center were among the attendees of the private February meeting of the State Financial Officers Foundation in New Orleans, according to the attendee list reviewed by CNBC. One of the organizations that attended last February is the 1792 Exchange, a non-profit sponsor of the State Financial Officers Foundation. The group, which has become a key player in the anti-ESG movement, has ties to key Trump allies. The 1792 Exchange says it intends to develop policy and resources to protect and equip nonprofits, small businesses and philanthropy from woke corporations to educate Congress and stakeholder organizations about the dangers of ESG, environmental, social, and governance policies. Critics have deployed the vague term woke capitalism, in response to a broad range of stances taken by corporations that they see as too beholden to liberal politics. The organization recently published an online index that grades over 1,000 companies on policies, practices, and other relevant criteria to determine the likelihood a company will cancel a contract or client, or boycott, divest, or deny services based on views or beliefs. The companies that the group has given a critical high-risk grade include BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. The 1792 Exchange does not report on its website who its founders are, and the group's president, Paul Fitzpatrick, would not reveal the identity of those who formed the organization. Nathan Istruth, a former vice president at Procter & Gamble, said this year that he was a co-founder of the 1792 Exchange. Istruth was among the group's representatives at the State Financial Officers Foundation's February 2022 national meeting in New Orleans. Istruth has played a varied role in GOP politics in recent years. He ran a failed bid to become Lieutenant Governor of Ohio in 2018. Records show the 1792 Exchange also has early ties to Cleta Mitchell, an attorney who worked with Trump as he tried to overturn the 2020 presidential election, and Ken Blackwell, a Republican former Ohio Secretary of State. Fitzpatrick told CNBC that neither Mitchell nor Blackwell have a current role with the 1792 Exchange. In 2021, Mitchell was listed as Secretary and Blackwell as Director of Constitutional Congress Incorporated, the name by which the 1792 Exchange was previously known, according to financial forms filed to the Internal Revenue Service and obtained by CNBC. The original group, which said it focused on educating the public and lawmakers about the Constitution, changed its name to the 1792 Exchange last year and shifted its focus to fighting corporate policies, according to Delaware State Business Records. Constitutional Congress was formed to educate officials and citizens on various issues, and the 1792 Exchange carries on that mission, but it is giving attention to retiree and also shareholder issues, Fitzpatrick told CNBC. Fitzpatrick, who provided CNBC with the group's 2021 forms filed with the IRS, did not offer its 2022 documents because they have not been filed yet. Both Mitchell and Blackwell have ties to Trump's efforts to spread conspiracies about the 2020 election. Mitchell worked on the former president's scheme to overturn 2020 state election results. Meanwhile, Blackwell is the chair of the Trump-aligned America First Policy Institute Center for Election Integrity, which was created after Trump's failed attempt to get re-elected in 2020. It has challenged the integrity of the U.S. election system. He was also part of Trump's controversial Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity, which the former president created shortly after the 2016 election. Mitchell declined to answer questions to CNBC when asked about her role with Constitutional Congress, and instead ripped this reporter, falsely claiming in an email that he has never done a single story that isn't a hit piece against conservatives. Blackwell did not return requests for comment. The sources of anti-ESG funding. A growing list of Republican donors, including other Trump allies, along with a massive donor advisory fund, have helped to provide funding for the anti-ESG fight.
President Biden is vowing to use his veto power for the first time as president, and the target is a bill in the Senate that would no longer allow a Labor Department rule that does allow retirement fund managers to consider ESG factors when making investments on behalf of pensioners. Got that? It's part of a growing backlash against ESG and what some are calling woke capitalism, and this is what the president might veto. CNBC.com's Brian Schwartz has been writing about the funding behind this movement, and he joins us now to talk about it. And Brian, welcome, first of all. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
It is interesting how big an issue this has become. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy is basically running for president with a campaign that largely started in attacking ESG.
Very outspoken. Yeah, you're right. I mean, look, I never thought we'd be sitting here talking about how certain politicians, particularly Republicans, are taking on Wall Street. I didn't have that on the bingo card, at least until this new Congress. But listen, it's clearly become a trend. It's been brought up in this 2024 election fight. You mentioned Vivek. He's somebody that's brought that up. But again, there's real questions, and this is what the story we focused on CBC.com, of the origins of this, right? Where is this coming from the Republican side of things? And it's coming from, at least in part, from a group of conservative leading organizations. We kind of map out who's funded them, where they're tied to. Some groups are tied to allies of former President Donald Trump. One of those people is Leonard Leo. He's running a nonprofit and funding part of this effort to push back against BlackRock and their ESG investment platforms through a multi-million-dollar investment. That's the nonprofit run by Leonard Leo. And these are the things that are going on behind the scenes as Republicans, both at the state and federal level, are trying to make this part of their kind of political goals and their.
And by the way, this is from Axios this week as well. But venture capital and private equity funds are de-emphasizing ESG considerations. There's been an 11-point drop in those saying ESG is a determining factor to just 56%. A key challenge is how to back up claims with clear evidence and reporting to avoid accusations of greenwashing and now, of course, the politicization of the issue.
And it's not even just that. I mean, in a market where things are drifting lower or have no real upside catalyst. In a bull market, it's very easy to talk about ESG.
Right.
When it's a down market, you're just trying to make money or not lose it. So how exactly does the environment factor into some of the nature of these, these campaigns, either anti or for ESG?
Well, you're 100% right. But that's actually part of the debate, right? That's where we're looking at. That's what Republicans are kind of discussing on the Hill, this kind of environment that we're seeing here. So some of the Republican officials, particularly at the state level, are trying to suggest that BlackRock, for instance, we mentioned them a lot on air. This is the big targets by Republican officials across the country, is somehow using their ESG investment model as a core focus and pulling back on investments from the fossil fuel industry, when that is not entirely true, right? The BlackRock still invested into a number of fossil fuel type companies while they are still trying to run this kind of ESG investment suggestions to their various clients and whatnot. So this is kind of the situation we're seeing here. It's this debate, right? What is BlackRock actually doing? This is what Republicans are bringing up. And how much of a focus they're really still putting toward the fossil fuel industry while having these ESG investment platforms. Is the ESG investment platforms too much? Is it overtaking their business?
And BlackRock has become the face of the ESG movement. And the other, Vanguard and State Street and others are happy to sit back and go, yeah, you take the hit here. I mean, Vanguard has pulled out of a climate agreement that a bunch of companies were involved in over concerns about kind of being associated with this groupthink. And Larry Fink has been on our air saying that his solution to this is basically to use blockchain in the future to link your vote, you as the index investor, for instance, or ESG investor, to your political goals, which raises its own concerns long term about these intermediaries and the influence that they have.
Or just tracking them in general.
Right. There's tracking in order to make sure that they are not making the selection for you.
Right.
And then there's tracking that makes you concerned that maybe they know too much about the political goals of your organization. So it's a really difficult issue. But to your larger point, the campaign looks in its early stages of what could be a rather successful move here to kind of push back against what was the prevailing trend just 2 or 3 years ago.
You're 100% right. Really, the two sides to this coin, right? Progressives are saying, you look at BlackRock, they're not doing enough to fight back against big oil and the fossil fuel industry. And then there's this other side, more of the Republican, conservative-leaning side, who are saying, they're too much into this ESG stuff. And frankly, the Republican side, the conservatives, are winning right now. Look what the bill that passed yesterday.
Republicans going after Wall Street, just like Brian said.
That was not on the bingo card.
What is this world coming to?
Was Trump shooter was handled as BlackRock. The ties that bind BlackRock and Biden. We believe the line between Wall Street and Washington, D.C. has always been a little blurry. But as the new Biden administration has taken the helm of the White House this year, it's growing harder and harder to see where Wall Street begins and Washington, D.C. ends. We feel the current reality is that big investment firms have even more influence on our nation's policies. Take BlackRock Incorporated, BLK, for example. BlackRock is the biggest investment firm globally, offering its investment fund lineup to more than 35 million retirement plans, supporting over 100,000 financial advisors who construct investment portfolios for their clients and serving investors in more than 100 countries around the world. At the end of the first quarter of 2021, BlackRock had more than $9.0 trillion in assets under management, AUM. To put this into perspective, only 2 countries in the world have GDP figures larger than BlackRock's total AUM. US GDP totals around $21 trillion, and China's GDP comes in at $14.7 trillion. Even fiscally responsible Germany only has a GDP of $3.8 trillion. It's not too surprising then that American presidents have sought the expertise and advice of former and current BlackRock executives. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris even followed former President Barack Obama's lead, turning to BlackRock when they sought out economic and financial advisors for the new presidential cabinet. Brian Dees, a former BlackRock investment executive, serves on the National Economic Council. Adewale Adeyemo, former chief of staff to BlackRock's chief executive, is the top official at the Treasury Department. Formerly the global chief investment strategist at BlackRock, Michael Pyle is now the chief economic advisor to Vice President Harris. I should note, Dees, Adeyemo, and Pyle all also worked with the Obama administration. This pipeline flows in both directions. BlackRock has hired several policymakers and regulators who served past administrations. For example, Dahlia Blass was an official with the SEC and now leads external affairs at BlackRock. Thomas Donnellan was a national security advisor to President Obama and is currently chairman of BlackRock's research business. So it's no understatement to point out that BlackRock has strong ties to Washington, D.C., and the firm now has a profound influence on the Biden administration. The question is this influence good or bad for Wall Street? Well, the answer to that question depends on which corner of Wall Street you're standing on. Consider the following. A recent article from the Wall Street Journal pointed out that money management firms like BlackRock and JP Morgan Asset Management are buying up entire residential communities and turning the homes into rental units. The demand for properties from these firms adds to the bidding wars we are seeing for properties and is helping drive home prices even higher. 1. Now, suppose you're an individual looking to achieve the American dream of home ownership and hope to take advantage of the low mortgage rate environment. In that case, you may be less than pleased that BlackRock is scooping up properties. Bidding against a big firm like BlackRock or JP Morgan can be next to impossible. But for central banks, BlackRock's and its peers' foray into the real estate market may eliminate some risks to the unwinding of easy money policies. Central banks worldwide flooded their respective economies with stimulus in the past 18 months, whether through interest rate cuts, bond buying programs, or both. Now, with economies recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, they face several risks if they taper their stimulus programs too fast or too slow. Regarding the real estate market, if the Federal Reserve waits too long, it risks further inflating the housing market. Due to a limited number of homes on the market and strong demand, existing home prices have soared to a median of $350,000. That represents a 25% year-over-year increase and a new record high, too. The term housing bubble is already being tossed around, and we all know too well the havoc unwinding a housing bubble creates. Biden ties to BlackRock deepen with latest Treasury hire. Eric Van Nostrand, a BlackRock managing director who was head of research for sustainable investments and multi-asset strategies, is exiting to join the Treasury Department. He will be a senior advisor on economic issues tied to Russia and Ukraine and will report to Ben Harris, Assistant Secretary of Treasury for Economic Policy, a person familiar with the matter said. He starts on Monday. Van Nostrand and a representative for BlackRock declined to comment. Larry Fink's $8.5 trillion investing giant has been gaining clout in Washington as the Biden administration has stocked its ranks with ex-BlackRock executives. That means the company is now seen as one of Wall Street's key conduits to the power center in Washington, a tag that was more closely associated with Goldman Sachs Group Inc. through prior administrations. That growing clout has invited criticism from both ends of the political spectrum, with the firm frequently targeted for its investing policies tied to climate, its business in China, and its role as one of the largest stock owners of most major public companies. Shortly after winning the election in November 2020, President Biden tapped two BlackRock executives for senior roles on his economics team. Brian Dees, the former head of sustainability at BlackRock who now runs the National Economic Council, and Adewale Adeyemo, the Deputy Treasury Secretary. Dees was most recently in the spotlight for his defense of what defines a recession. Mike Pyle, BlackRock's former chief investment strategist, joined the administration to serve as Kamala Harris's chief economic advisor and is now a key player on Russia sanctions. All three had previously worked in the Obama administration, like Van Nostrand, before moving to BlackRock and then returning to Washington. The moves are a reversal of the flow in recent years, when BlackRock tapped more than a dozen alumni of former President Barack Obama's administration, including his national security advisor, Senior Advisor for Climate Policy, a former Federal Reserve Vice Chairman he appointed, and numerous other economists from the White House, Treasury, and Fed. At BlackRock, Van Nostrand led a global team focused on developing sustainable investment strategies and also was responsible for a team coordinating research and portfolio strategy across the multi-asset investment platform, including global economics, asset allocation, and portfolio construction.
Multiple people heard and saw the exact same thing. They gave very descriptive accounts. So why are these accounts being dismissed? Why would a second suspect being in the water tower, who has a very easy line of sight to the podium, be out of the realm of possibility, so much so that bots are being released to push back this narrative? You have people saying that this is just not possible. But why? Being on the water tower has a much better advantage, multiple advantages, than a person being on the roof. Because in a normal world, the person seen on the roof would have been taken out right away. They would not have waited over 30 minutes to take out the person on the roof. There were many people who were at Trump's rally who said they saw the man who is supposed to be Thomas Matthew Crooks climbing on the roof for quite some time. It was captured on film. The police and the Secret Service were made aware of this.
We're doing the job. I wouldn't even be doing this. I'd be at some beautiful place with the gorgeous ocean, the Mediterranean.
Look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there, see him? He's laying down. See him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And son, I'm here with you fighting cartel to get a Senate.
What's happening? Look. There he is.
Because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people. Criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here.
On the roof.
It's much tougher than it.
What sniper who is on a mission to take out the ex-president of the United States, who is currently running for president again, is going to keep themselves so out in the open where multiple people can see them? People are pointing at him. Multiple people. They are yelling out, police, there he is. And I am sure the man who is on this roof can hear them saying, there he is on the roof. There's a man on the roof. And yet, he still continues this mission on the roof without a care in the world. Very, very odd. Does the man who's on the roof not realize there are people out there not too far from him pointing him out and yelling at him? Given the fact they knew that man was on the roof for over 30 minutes, Secret Service and the police did nothing. They could have at least rushed Trump off the stage. They could have taken him away off the stage. But given the fact they did nothing for 30 minutes and people were pointing this man out, it's very suspicious. It's making me believe that this man on the roof was a patsy and a distraction. If he realized his cover was blown due to all the people pointing him out and yelling that there's someone on the roof, and he's still continuing this mission without the worry of the other snipers that are focused on him and the police that could come and get him, it makes me believe this was all a setup. And this person on the roof, who only has one train of thought to distract everybody away from the real sniper, is more than likely an agent, an MK Ultra agent. A year ago, we all had spoken about a certain movie and how this certain movie was predictive programming for what's to come, and that movie happens to be Civil War. Well, what started the conflict in that movie? It all started with snipers, and on the cover of the Civil War movie, we can see 2 snipers. Then there are people saying there is predictive programming in the new trailer for Captain America, A Brave New World, the new Captain America movie, where the president in that movie, the president of the United States, has a shot taken at him, he drops to the ground, and then the whole premise of the movie is about how the president's inner circle is compromised. There are people in his inner circle trying to take him out. They say the exact same words in the trailer. Your inner circle is compromised. I do not know how you cannot see that. And we are seeing this play out in real time. How there are people that believe that Trump's Secret Service was compromised. They knew what was about to happen. They stood down. They waited for the man to fire. And then they took out the sniper. Then there is a photo, a bizarre photo being passed around by news and media where they are saying this is Thomas Matthew Crooks at the day of the rally. An aerial photo of Thomas Matthew Crooks. Where did they get this photo? If this was a drone photo, were they tracking him for quite some time? And if they were, still begs the question, why did they not intervene? Why did they not take Trump out of the rally? Makes no sense whatsoever. This is all a setup. This is all planned. and whoever the man is on the roof is once again either a distraction, a patsy, or both. So there is still a lot going on here. The rabbit hole still runs very deep. There are a lot of witnesses who saw and heard things they were not supposed to see and hear. They were supposed to look over here and not over there.
I was playing the clip of Larry Fink, but like he stated, everyone's talking about re-educating and getting the kids ready for the fourth industrial revolution. But if the robots, algorithms, and drones are thinking on their own, they're going to take over the industries. And Larry Fink knows that. Remember, guys, the end game, they want the robots, algorithms, and drones to take over the economy and the sheep to go inside the metaverse. Because like he stated, supercomputers, only China and the U.S. and maybe a couple other countries are going to have them. And if you're taking all this data, giving it to a supercomputer, have an application that's attached to this robot, is nothing that this robot is not going to be able to do. It's nothing but a big brain, and they're pulling all the information that we've ever been taught in 2 seconds. So it doesn't matter the industry you're in, the machines are coming for your job. But remember, the Most High gives you work, the devil gives you a job. That's the reason why you have to get in the lab, get yourselves prepared, think outside the box. The Most High gave you your mind, which is the greatest thing ever. They still can't figure it out. So when it comes to these jobs, yes, the machines can do them, but you can create your own reality and make money from it. We've seen it done tons of times. But this clip was great because it brings you back into reality. Like Jordy Rose stated, it's a locomotive coming. It's just whether you're prepared. Remember, guys, my people perish from the lack of knowledge because they reject it. And we know the Most High is going to reject the children because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
I think the Great Divide is going to get worse.
The Great Divide?
The wealthy and the poorer countries. I think
within and between countries.
Within between countries, I think the divide is going to occur through the middle class developing countries that have a foundation of education will be able to accelerate faster than just having population growth in them. Juxtaposing now Africa, where there's population growth and there's still inadequacy in terms of real foundation of education. And I think the divide is going to be greater and greater in education. If you forecast out the transformation that we're going to see across all societies because of AI, robotics, sensor technology, the speed in which this change is going to occur, I could argue in the developed countries, the big winners are countries that have shrinking populations. Okay, that's something that most people never talked about. You know, we always used to think shrinking population is a cause for negative growth. But in my conversations with the leadership of these large developed countries that have xenophobic immigration policies, they don't allow anybody to come in, shrinking unemployment, shrinking demographics, these countries will rapidly develop robotics and AI and technology. And if the promise, I didn't say it's going to happen, but if the promise of all that transforms productivity, which most of us think it will, we'll be able to elevate the standard of living of countries and the standard of living of individuals, even with shrinking populations. And so the paradigm of negative population growth is going to be changing. And the social problems that one will have in substituting humans for machines is going to be far easier in those countries that have declining populations. And so for those countries that have rising populations, countries will rapidly develop robotics and AI and technology. And if the promise, I didn't say it's going to happen, but if the promise of all that transforms productivity, which most of us think it will, we'll be able to elevate the standard of living of countries and the standard of living of individuals, even with shrinking populations. And so the paradigm of negative population growth is going to be changing. And the social problems that one will have in substituting humans for machines is going to be far easier in those countries that have declining populations. And so for those countries that have rising populations, the answer will be education, and so rapidly developing. For those countries that do not have a foundation of rule of law or education, they're going to be left. That's where the divide's going to get more and more extreme. And unfortunately,
I think we differ, Larry, because what I said is population growth with the right education.
Yes, I agree with that.
So, I mean, they are synonymous. You can't have population growth without the education. Actually, my worry is about developed countries where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And actually, in my opinion, the backbone of any society is the middle class. And if the middle class is shrinking, then we see more polarization within the society. That is my worry more for the developed world. In the developing countries who are paying attention to that, paying attention to education, giving the opportunities for the youth, and taking into consideration an all-inclusive growth, I think for the coming few decades, if the rule of law stays, if the right governance stays, I see a great potential for them.
Thank you. Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go, but clearly we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing. Bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
The police and FBI have now confirmed it to be an assassination attempt. They say it is still an active crime scene. Police officially still not identifying who the shooter is, though, although they say they are close. They say they are waiting until they are 100% confident. Some complications have slowed down a positive identification because there was no ID on the shooter, they say, so they're conducting DNA checks. And they say there's no reason to believe that there is any other existing threat. So a lone wolf, a solo shooter. But aside from that, the New York Post is right now reporting the shooter to be 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. They've got a photograph there that has been published again. This is the New York Post. It's an image of what appears to be that shooter on the roof with blood on his face and security standing over his body. That there, one of the images of the day, the 20-year-old shooter there on the roof, Thomas Matthew Crooks. Again, this is according to the New York Post, a little over 100 metres away from where Donald Trump was giving that campaign speech. So let's back things up and recap what's happened today. There has been an assassination attempt on the former US President Donald Trump as he was campaigning in Butler in Pennsylvania early today. Donald Trump was grazed by a bullet on his ear, his right ear, and he has been discharged from hospital. That's the good news. He had reportedly been taken to be treated in Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania after a shooting at that nearby campaign rally. He's now been discharged or has left the county where the shooting took place and is under the protection of US Secret Service as well as the state police. So this is what we know about the shooting so far. The former president and the current challenger had been holding a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, when audience members reported hearing multiple gunshots. It's not just audience members. That video that's beaming around the world now, we can all hear multiple gunshots. Trump then seen falling to the ground after clutching his ear, where he was quickly surrounded by his armed security staff, the Secret Service. He was then escorted away from the scene. The Secret Service says Trump is now safe and has launched protective measures. So backing things up again, this is the moment that the shooting took place.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Moving to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you.
Ready.
Move.
Up.
Move.
Go. Up. Hawkeye's here.
Hawkeye's here. Moving to spare.
Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready.
We ready?
Down. Down.
Are we good? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good to move?
Shooters down. We're good to move.
We're clear.
We're clear.
Let's move. Let's move.
We're clear.
Come on.
Let me get my shoes. Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus. Move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay. My shoes down. Watch out.
Wait.
Someone who was here. You weren't inside the event, nope. But you were just outside. Tell us what you saw.
So we had a party here all day. You can see behind us at the Brinkles Farming Greenhouse here. We had a party, and we all decided, hey, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees up there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally. Right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up. And probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking, I'm estimating here, I have no idea, but we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, you know, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on. You know, we're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. You know, he's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2 or 3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots rang out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling the police and the Secret Service?
We were telling the police. We were pointing at them for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
binoculars?
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way the slope went, he was behind where they could see. But why is there not Secret Service on all of these roofs here? I mean, this is not a big place.
Did you see, obviously everyone, when the shooting started, everyone was very panicked. Did you see what happened to him at all?
Oh yeah, they blew his head off.
Okay, sorry.
Secret Service blew his head off.
Okay, just be careful because we don't quite know who's watching, but you're pretty sure they shot the guy?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
You saw that happen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you see them go up to him afterwards, or?
They crawled up on the roof. They had their guns pointed at him, make sure he was dead. He was dead, and that was it. It was over.
It's incredibly shocking.
The guy was on the roof right there. You can see the white roof right there.
Did you get a look at him? Could you?
No, other than he was in muted colors, tan type clothing. We saw the rifle flinging around as he was trying to crawl. We saw the rifle, 100%.
Do you know about guns? Do you know what kind of weapon it was?
Oh, I absolutely know about guns, for sure. It was a rifle of some sort. I wouldn't know, I wasn't close enough to read the label on it,
but
it was a rifle of some sort. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you process what you've just seen?
I don't know what to say, man. All I'll tell you is, if I walked up close to there with anything that Secret Service considered a problem, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you right now. But I don't know why a guy who we're standing there pointing out to police and Secret Service is crawling up the roof.
Were you outside the security perimeter?
Yes, right there by that tree. We were outside the security perimeter. But my question is, there's only a few buildings around here. Why is Secret Service not on every building here?
Well, there's a whole bunch of questions, I think, that are going to come.
There's a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Trump flight on the horse?
Yes, she was right in front of me. She kept going back and forth right in front of me. Yes.
Tell us about her.
Nice horse, nice lady running with a flag. Seemed very, patriotic.
But what's the significance of her?
No, he asked me if I saw a horse.
Okay. All right, well listen, I'm sorry you had to witness that. That was a terrible thing. And you just stay safe with your family and...
Gotcha.
All we know was shots were fired, and then I jumped over the barrier and put my hand on the guy's head that was refusing to
Who was it? Do you know?
This
is not Trump, though. This is another person.
Yeah. So Trump's not here.
And you said he got hit on his head?
Yeah.
Were you in the vicinity where Trump was?
I was on the side. I was with a special guest.
Are you okay?
I'm Rico Elmore, but I just military reactions.
Yeah.
Secret Service agents rushed former President Donald Trump off stage after shots were fired, moments after he began speaking at a Saturday evening rally in Butler County, Pennsylvania. The Secret Service says a man attending the rally was killed. A doctor standing nearby tried to help him, performing CPR.
The guy had spun around and was jammed between the benches. He had a headshot here.
Trump raised his fist as he left the stage. On his Truth Social site, the former president said he was shot by a bullet that pierced the upper part of his right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin, he wrote. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening.
I just hear these 4 shots and everybody's screaming drop, and you can see the blood like splatter on his face, and the Secret Service just barricades him.
The Secret Service says the gunman was outside the cordoned-off area of the rally, standing on an elevated structure, and that he was shot and killed by a member of the agency's counter-assault team. A large number of Secret Service agents is in Milwaukee right now ahead of the convention. They're trying to piece together what
most recent
happened.
video, I had pointed out how Thomas Matthew Crooks, the man who fired shots at Trump's rally, appeared in a BlackRock commercial. BlackRock is an organization that has their hands in everything, including what happened with the C-19 and pharmaceuticals. We know indeed this is Thomas Matthew Crooks because not only does this look like Thomas Matthew Crooks, but this commercial was filmed in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania High School. Thomas Matthew Crooks graduated from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania High School. Now, outside of Thomas Crooks, there were a couple other men who were caught up in this whole incident that occurred at Trump's rally. One of those men happened to be on TikTok, someone who goes by the name of Jewglazer. The reason this person on Twitter that goes by Jewglazer was caught up in this whole incident happens to be because he said he was Thomas Matthew Crooks. It also did not help that he looked like the shooter's twin.
My name is Thomas Matthew Crooks. I hate Republicans, I hate Trump, and guess what? You got the wrong guy.
So news and media ran with it, and they released many articles where they had shown Thomas Matthew Crooks' photo and Jewglazer's photo side by side. So apparently Thomas Matthew Crooks and Jewglazer are indeed 2 different people. But something about all this still does not sit right with me. As of right now, Jewglazer either deleted his Twitter or set it to private. You can no longer see his photos or his videos. Now, another man I do want to talk about who has also been caught up in this whole incident is a man that goes by the name of Maxwell Yurick. Here's what's rather interesting about Maxwell Yurick. Maxwell Yurick was previously arrested back in 2016 at a Trump rally protesting Trump. So Maxwell Yurick is indeed anti-Trump, and he has been on a watch list ever since 2016. Well, when Jewglazer said that you got the wrong guy, for whatever reason, news and media started to drop articles that the person behind the incident was Maxwell Yurick. It was confirmed by those who had attended this rally that Secret Service did take out the man who caused this incident by the way of taking off his face. Photos, like they always do, make their way around the internet, and this one photo does indeed show Maxwell Yurick with his face grazed by a bullet. Now, for obvious reasons, I can't show the photo on YouTube, but if you do want to see the photo, I will link to the Twitter page below that does indeed have the photo. Now, if you are sensitive to that type of imagery, I do warn not to click on it. But as you can see in the photo, if you are going to look at it, the man that has the bullet graze looks exactly like Maxwell. Almost all the news agencies that had released articles where it's shown Matthew Yurick's photo and name had been scrubbed off the internet, except for a few. For whatever reason, in the surviving news article, it does state that Democrats believe Maxwell Yurick was the one who was behind this incident. So I am sure there are many names, many faces who are on watch lists when it comes to Trump. So why did they just pick this name out of the hat? These 2 people do not look like each other whatsoever. And if this previous photo of a bullet grazing Maxwell Yurick's face shows him deceased, then they should have already known that this man was deceased. There was no way he could have caused this incident at Trump's rally. This photo of a deceased Maxwell Yurick doesn't look fake or AI, but then again, who knows? We can never trust our own eyes in the day and age of AI, but that also begs the question, why would somebody create a fake photo then? This rabbit hole continues to get deeper and deeper and deeper. None of this makes sense. They are now saying that the person that did cause this incident at Trump's rally was indeed Thomas Matthew Crooks. Now, when it comes to the people that always seem to cause these rather bizarre events, they always seem to have the same background. They are loners who are bullied. They had no friends. These loners who are bullied always also seem to know how to use the exact same weapon. Crooks happens to be no different. Crooks was a loner. He was bullied. He was made fun of for how he dressed. He always wore hunting clothes. He fits the bill like all the rest of these people who supposedly caused these incidents. Those who had known Crooks had stated he was very quiet. He stayed to himself. He never spoke about politics in person or on social media. He never had a social media presence. Just look at this rather bizarre interview. This person being interviewed said they knew Crooks, but look at this person's body language. Something seems rather off.
As we've been here, there's a large media presence here. You've had members of the community come and approach us, including one person who said he actually went to high school with this suspected shooter. I want you to listen to a little bit of our conversation there.
He was bullied almost every day.
In what way? Can you explain?
I mean, he would sit alone at lunch. I mean, he was just an outcast, and you know how kids are nowadays, so they're gonna see someone like that and they're gonna target him because they think it's funny or whatever. So it's the best way I can describe it. And it's honestly kind of sad. Like, I don't want to say this is what provoked it, but you never know.
Yeah. You said he was a loner?
Yeah. I want to say he was a loner more because he was quiet, but like he was just bullied. Like he was bullied so much.
This was high school.
Yeah.
What did do you remember at all what they said to him or called him?
No. He was just made fun of, I guess, for the way he dressed or his appearance.
That's what he was saying. He said that he was actually in the class before, behind the suspected shooter here, and we have some movement here where you hear an ambulance or a car horn. Excuse that background noise. But one thing that we also heard from that conversation is that when we asked what he was bullied for, what this shooter was bullied for, he pointed to his clothing. Apparently, according to this person who says he was a classmate, the shooter would wear military style clothes or hunting clothes regularly as he was at school. So we're still learning a lot more. We can tell you investigators continue to go in and out of the scene here. We know multiple agencies are here, not just local police, but the county bomb squad. As I mentioned last night, I saw the ATF here. It's a calm scene. It's not completely evacuated. Many residents are still in their homes behind here, but you can tell this is definitely a focal point of this investigation as we learn more about this suspected shooter who, again, from what we know and from public records, does not have a criminal history, not a large social media presence. So there's a lot more information that folks are looking to learn, Tom.
Out of nowhere, this bullied loner just wants to make a name for himself by taking out Trump. There are reports coming out, multiple reports are coming out where people are saying that they never knew Crooks had ever taken a stance with politics. He never spoke about politics. One day, he just decided to take out Trump. I don't know, this whole thing just does not pass any smell test to me. From the mix-up of the names and the photos, to how Secret Service or the police had responded to the whole incident. This just continues to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and we are left with more questions than answers. But yesterday was a wild, wild day for this channel, and I have never seen anything like it before in the 2 years that I have been doing YouTube. Now, I am no stranger to attacks on this channel when it comes to videos being removed, subscribers being removed, likes being removed, and comments being removed. I have seen it all, but yesterday, one video had been targeted in a way that I have never seen before. It's this video right here. Shocking Trump rally shooting suspect in a commercial. It seemed like every little word was triggering their censor bots. Everybody knows that I like to be in the comment section of my videos. I like to be very active in the comment section, so I was replying to comments. I must have received about 5 or 6 comments within seconds of each other, and I was replying to these comments. All of them were deleted back to back. I even had to leave a pinned comment on that video saying, YouTube is deleting comments left and right on this video like I've never seen before. Please comment as much as possible to counter this. And many of you had said you noticed this as well. As you were trying to leave a comment on that video, they were either being deleted or YouTube would not allow you to comment. I was back and forth as to whether or not I should reach out to YouTube tech support, because generally if you have a problem with your channel, they'll run a diagnostic test. Luckily, I had taken a screenshot of this because I had held off until I started receiving errors trying to leave a comment on my own video. I received what is called a returned error trying to leave a pinned comment on the same exact video, and I have never received anything like this before. There had to have been about 200 comments deleted, if not more. Yes, I have seen comments being deleted from other videos, but there would be around like 5 to 10 comments deleted per those videos. But this time, YouTube went absolutely overboard. So I reached out to YouTube tech support because, like I said, what they'll do in these situations, they will send it off to a specialist to run a diagnostic check on the channel to see if there might be any glitches or bugs that are affecting the channel. Even with the screenshot in hand showing I was getting this error, YouTube tech support just brushed me off, which has never happened before. The person reviewing the channel said I was getting comments and that was that. I said, yes, I'm getting comments, but many more are being deleted rather quickly. They said, everything's fine, you're getting comments, leave it alone. So because I did not like this answer, I reached out to a second person and still, yet again, I was brushed off. You're getting comments, leave it alone. Even though I have had my problems with YouTube in the past, if tech support could not figure it out, they would always give the case off to a specialist who would run a test. This time, YouTube tech support did not want to get involved whatsoever. It is clear as day that YouTube is heavily monitoring and censoring these channels that talk outside the narrative when it comes to what happened at this rally. Anybody that's questioning what took place at this rally are being monitored. The bots are picking up on any little keyword and outright deleting comments. They were not even monitoring and censoring my Beauvais Island videos like they are with these Trump rally videos. And we uncovered a lot of information when it came to those Beauvais Island videos. YouTube is and always will be very censorship heavy, but I have never seen anything like the past couple days. With this level of censorship and monitoring, I foresee channels being banned. Any channel that questions the original narrative of what took place at this rally. Right now, it's very early, but I do believe in the next few weeks, if not a month, anybody who questions what took place at this rally will be banned. Because there is just so much that had taken place on the 13th, so many questions, so many things that do not add up, that the only thing that they can do to contain everything that's happening, contain all these questions, is to now start banning people from speaking out, like they did with the C-19. Even the narrative behind the man Thomas Matthew Crooks, the man who supposedly fired the shots at Trump's rally, is starting to change. It's starting to slowly change. We were starting to hear the same old BS from people he went to high school with. Even though the man is 20 and finished high school about 2 years ago, they were interviewing people he went to high school with. Those people were given the same old responses when it comes to people involved in these very bizarre events. He was a loner who was bullied. He was bullied over his clothes. He was shy. He was quiet. He sat by himself during lunch. He had absolutely no friends whatsoever. Yet the narrative on Thomas Crooks is starting to slowly change. People in his high school knew him as an intelligent student who had a few friends, but who never exhibited any glaring red flags. I thought he was a bullied loner that sat by himself during lunch, but anyway, the nursing home where he had a job helping with meals said his work gave its staff no reason for concern. In all these stories where people cause these horrific events, you will find that there will always be these red flags that circle around these people. Oh, they were anti-this, they were anti-that. They spoke about this, they spoke about that. They were a pot boiling over, ready to explode at any moment. We ignored all the red flags. Yet, when it comes to Thomas Crooks, they cannot find anything on this man. They cannot find any red flags. So it seems like they were late in building up this perfect story. Something went wrong, something got mixed up. I still do believe they mixed up Maxwell Yerick and this man, Thomas Matthew Crooks. They were building up the perfect story for Maxwell Yerick. They said he was an anti-Trump protester who was previously arrested at a Trump rally for assault. He also has other history of assault during other rallies protesting Trump. Maxwell Yerick was supposedly being monitored. What tops everything else off is the fact there is a photo of Maxwell Yerick deceased with a bullet wound grazing his face. He is also wearing a gray shirt in that photo. That person lying prone on the roof ready to fire at Trump does not look like Thomas Crooks. He looks more like Maxwell Yerick. This person on the right lying prone ready to take the shot has a mustache that is similar to the outline of the mustache to Maxwell Yerick on the left. How can anybody not see this? This person lying prone ready to take the shot on the roof is clearly Maxwell Yerick. This is the photo of Thomas Matthew Crooks that news and media are circulating, saying this is Thomas Crooks at the rally prior to him getting on the roof and taking the shot at Trump. But if you look at his upper lip, you can barely make out a mustache. Yet, take a look at the photo of the person lying prone on the roof. You can make out a mustache. That mustache is thick, is luxurious. Looking at Maxwell Yerick's photo, look at his stubble. This is the kind of mustache that would grow on Maxwell Yerick's face. Something is very, very wrong with this picture here. The person lying prone on the roof, he looks taller, he looks thinner. Thomas Matthew Crooks, he looks shorter, he looks stockier. Even his hair is similar to Maxwell Yerick. I am telling you right now, and I'm calling this right now, they have both of these men mixed up when it comes to this narrative. What really screwed them up is when they said they ran blood tests on the suspect, and what came back was Thomas Crooks. They are so deep into this now, they are scrambling to put a narrative together for Thomas Crooks, who I believe they were going to use in another false flag event. Towards the end of the election, they were probably going to use Thomas Crooks for a school pow-pow event, if you know what I mean, and the whole narrative has now just gotten mixed up. Thomas Crooks' whole MO looks like it was put together, looks like it was built for somebody taking their revenge, their anger out on a school. Thomas Crooks, this bullied loner who sat by himself during lunch because he wore the wrong clothes, his background does not connect with him one day taking out the President of the United States. They know it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. They know they messed up. So now they have to target these channels, they have to target people who are now asking questions. Major news channels are now warning the public about conspiracy theories and misinformation when it comes to Trump's rally. Where have we seen this before? They are trying to stop us from speaking out and asking questions, while at the same time they work on building up this narrative. There were people in my previous video in the comment section of that previous video saying they did not use Maxwell Yerick this time because they already used Maxwell Yerick in a previous event back in 2017. But the event they used him for was a anti-Trump agenda. They were building him up. They even have Maxwell Yerick's death photo floating online, where it looks like he was indeed taken out by a sniper. Even the ears of that person in that photo matches Maxwell Yerick. Some will say that, well, the person that was seen lying prone, ready to fire at Trump, was wearing glasses. Maxwell Yerick was also seen wearing glasses in photos. Like I said, I just have the strongest feeling these two men were going to be used in two different agendas, and they mixed them up. Even the weapon Thomas Matthew Crooks used during the rally is a weapon you always hear used in a school pow-pow. An AR. Well, how did he afford the AR? How did he get it? His father gave it to him. This is the exact same narrative they used in all these previous school pow-pow events. If there was indeed a school event involving Thomas Matthew Crooks, they were possibly saving him for the October surprise, where something always happens in the October election cycle to shake up the votes. News and media ran articles where Maxwell Yerick was indeed the suspect behind the incident that took place at Trump's rally, and then they started to scrub those articles, but some have been left over. We have not even spoken yet about the other questions we have when it comes to the events that took place at Trump's rally.
If we were doing the job, I wouldn't even be doing this. I'd be at some beautiful place with the gorgeous ocean, the Mediterranean.
Look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there, see him? He's laying down. See him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And still I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a Senate.
What's happening? Yeah, look. There he is.
Because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here. It's much tougher than it.
Now, even though they said Thomas Matthew Crooks was quiet, he had a very little social media presence, he had never spoken to anybody about his political affiliation or practically anything. Now there are people coming out and speaking on his behalf, saying he was definitely a conservative. What? What? This looks like a Build-A-Bear narrative. They are building this agenda. They are building this narrative as they go along. So this man went from being a bullied loner who spoke to nobody, had little social media presence, they can't find any information on this man, what he believed, to now he was a conservative who was intelligent and had a few friends. a former classmate, and I wonder why they keep using classmates. Nothing about this makes sense. Couldn't they interview somebody from his place of work? But anyway, a former classmate of the 20-year-old man who tried unsuccessfully to end the life of former President Donald Trump at a Pennsylvania rally on Saturday recalled him being staunchly to the right of the political spectrum. Now, in every school pow pow event that had taken place, you will find that the people behind these events, these school pow pow events, they always lean conservative. When the information came out about Nick Cruz, they found out that he had a MAGA hat, that he leaned conservative. So now, out of nowhere, they found the one person to say that Thomas Matthew Crooks was a staunch conservative. The other person whose name appeared in this incident, Maxwell Yirk, was a staunch liberal. He assaulted somebody while he was protesting Trump because that other person defended Trump. So who sounds more likely to pow pow Trump? The now staunch conservative or the staunch liberal? I am telling you, they have these men mixed up accidentally. This classmate, Max R. Smith, says he definitely was conservative. It makes me wonder why he would carry out an attempt on a conservative candidate's life. Smith shared an American history class with Crooks and remembered a mock debate where their teacher made students stand on one side of the classroom or another to signal their allegiance. The majority of the class were on the liberal side, but Tom, no matter what, always stood his ground on the conservative side. So you can see Thomas Crook, his history of his red flags involved him being different in school. What we always see with these people who carry out these school pow pow events. His history was built up as an agenda for a school pow pow, not a political pow pow event. This is absolutely wild. This is absolutely crazy. And the rabbit hole keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. And deeper that we go, the more nothing makes sense. The more questions we have. And the more questions we have, there will be more censorship. We are going to see more and more news and media creating videos, articles, pushing back conspiracy theorists, quote unquote conspiracy theorists. How there's all this misinformation spreading online. How there's all these people on different platforms pushing this misinformation when it comes to what took place at Trump's rally, even though we have yet to be given a straight answer. Everything they have shown us, everything that was captured on video, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And now in today's world, if you were to ask any questions to what makes no sense whatsoever, why something makes no sense whatsoever, you are now labeled a conspiracy theorist. Two people who are creating this content, stay safe out there because they are targeting our channels left and right.
Either this was gross incompetence or it was an inside job. I'm going to show you the evidence. And by the end of this video, I want you to make up your own mind and I want you to drop me a comment down below. Was this just gross incompetence or an inside job? Because to me, there's no in between. Hey everyone, I'm Clayton Morris. You know, last night I was incredibly angry. Today I woke up even angrier as I was watching corporate media all say the same thing, almost as if they've been giving all the same talking points. We need to turn down the rhetoric. From CNN to Fox News to MSNBC to CBS, Face the Nation, all of them. We need to turn down the rhetoric. Even Fox News had the balls to have on an assassin himself, Mike Pompeo, who has been confirmed wanted to assassinate Julian Assange, former head of the CIA. So you're going to ask the former head of the CIA responsible for the assassination of John F. Kennedy, which worked lockstep with the Israeli government to destroy and try to kill and destroy the USS Liberty. You're going to ask the former head of the CIA, and he's going to tell you on your air, we need to tamp down the rhetoric. Okay, no, we don't need to tamp down the rhetoric. We need to turn up the rhetoric. We need to be angry. As Americans, we need to be angry and demand answers. We had a whole January 6th hearing.
Committee will be in order.
Can we have an entire July 13th hearing now to get to the bottom of this with full transparency from these government agencies? I sure hope so. I sure hope so. So let's go through a lot of the unanswered questions today. I'm going to go through point by point by point. And again, at the end of today's video, I want you to let me know down below, is this an inside job or just gross incompetence? So let's start with the first one. Did the Secret Service rebuff the Trump campaign's requests for increased security. Now, that has been confirmed by a number of sources that, in fact, yes, the Trump campaign did request beefed up security, not only on his person, but also at his residences.
But the failure here is absolutely catastrophic. And I got to tell you, the Secret Service should be very careful. I can tell you and absolutely confirm from the horse's mouth, from multiple people, not just one. And I saw Congresswoman Waltz text this out before on X. There have been repeated requests to increase the security footprint around not just the residences of Donald Trump, but the body itself. And they have been rebuffed. Like I said, I can tell you actual quotes. The Secret Service directors completely failed and candidly should resign today.
However, the head of media relations and PR for the Secret Service today released a statement saying that is untrue. He writes, this is absolutely false. In fact, we added protective resources and technology and capabilities as part of the increased campaign travel tempo. Okay, as part of the travel tempo. Really? Well, we know from Dan Bongino and other sources that, in fact, they did rebuff these requests. And, in fact, they didn't get the added security that they required. So that is a lie. That is an untruth. No wonder the Secret Service is coming out to make these statements. But what's also interesting about this statement, he says, we also increased resources and technology as part of his travel team, as part of his travel detail. Okay, so what then, here's a question, what additional technologies and resources did you employ in Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday for President Trump? Were there drones there? Did the sniper team have some sort of advanced technology that allowed them to protect President Trump? What were the additional resources and technologies that were used? I'd like an answer to that. So that is 100% a lie. The Secret Service did, in fact, turn down additional requests by the Trump campaign to have additional Secret Service detail. We know that to be a fact. So that is a lie from the Secret Service. Why also has Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose father was assassinated, whose uncle was assassinated by the CIA, rebuffed by the Biden administration to have additional Secret Service detail? President Biden signing his name on turning down additional Secret Service detail for RFK Jr. Why? We can send $200 billion to Ukraine. We can glad hand with Vladimir Zelensky. We can send billions of dollars in weapons to Israel and shake hands with Benjamin Netanyahu. But when a person running for president of the United States whose uncle was assassinated and whose father was assassinated, he asks for additional Secret Service details and we can't provide it to him, something is going on.
And remember that this is a Biden administration which, as you pointed out, has refused to protect Robert F. Kennedy Jr. even when his father and his uncle were assassinated. This is the Democrats in the House actually introduced a bill to strip Donald Trump of Secret Service protection. I mean, these people are crazy.
Okay, the other big questions we have, of course, about the shooter. So let's talk about the moments before the assassination attempt yesterday in Butler, Pennsylvania. Why in the world was this kid allowed to walk around the open fairgrounds with a rifle and then bring a giant ladder, we now know, to climb up the side of a building 150 yards away from the former president with a rifle, climb up a building with a ladder? Then eyewitnesses, who also confirmed this to the BBC, confirmed that they told police that they witnessed a man climbing a roof with a rifle, and he was army crawling on top of a white roof. They told the police this, and apparently they did nothing about it. Watch.
So we walked up, and probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking, I'm estimating here, I have no idea, but we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle.
A rifle.
We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on. You know, we're like, hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. You know, he's crawling.
Of course, the bigger question we have is why did the Secret Service not take the shot against this individual on the roof when they had the opportunity to? So let's paint a picture here and go through the timeline of exactly what happened. So the whole thing took about 6 minutes. The rally starts, 6 minutes later, Trump is shot. Here you see the Secret Service detail on the roof looking around, but they are stationed on top of the roof. Then about 6 minutes later, 42 seconds before the president is shot, they are now in a prone position using their scopes, taking aim at this individual across 150 yards from where the president is speaking. They see him clearly, they know that he has a long rifle, and they do not fire upon him. So they're clearly looking at this individual across 150 yards with their sniper scopes. They see him. Police have already been alerted that there's a man climbing with a rifle on top of the roof. So 42 seconds before the president is shot, you can see the Secret Service sniper team prone position looking through their scopes in the direction of the shooter. This is after they had been notified by eyewitnesses and the police had been notified by that individual I just pointed out to you that spoke to the BBC that notified them of this individual on the rooftop climbing with a rifle, using a ladder to climb up a roof.
Next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
Why did they not take the shot? 42 seconds later, shots rang out and President Trump is hit. Why did they allow him to get off a shot? They see him on this roof. Why did they stand down? Why did they not do anything? Again, gross incompetence or an inside job? All right, now let's talk about the shooter. 20-year-old Thomas Crooks. He's been identified. He lived with his mother and father in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, about 43 miles away from this location. Thomas worked nearby at a local soup kitchen. We now know that both of his parents are professional counselors. That has been confirmed. They are professional counselors licensed in the state of Pennsylvania to practice counseling. I have a big question. Was this individual, Thomas Crooks, on any sort of antidepressants? Any sort of SSRIs? The reason I ask that question, and I hope we'll get an answer, because he's not a minor, he's 20 years old, we should have access and be able to hear from the FBI whether or not he was on any kind of antidepressants. Almost every mass shooting in the United States over the last more than decade or so, starting with Columbine all the way up, have one thing in common, and that is antidepressants, SSRIs. Was this individual on an antidepressant, and who gave him the prescription for antidepressants? Was it any one of his parents, who are professional counselors, who of course can write prescriptions and allow their son to be on antidepressants or SSRIs? I'd love to know the answer to that. We also know that he had a large amount of explosives in his parents' house. We also know he had explosives in the vehicle that he drove to the location to carry out the assassination. So if you're a counselor, your job is to counsel, to understand human behavior. How do you not see that your son is making explosives in your house? The other questions we have, of course, was he a lone wolf, a lone gunman, working by himself? Mike Benz pointing out, cybersecurity expert Mike Benz pointing out that last night his Facebook, his Instagram, Thomas Crooks's Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms and YouTube channel were being wiped and content was being removed. Who was removing this content? Was it the tech companies removing this content at the request of somebody in the federal government? I would love to know that. He's dead. Who's removing content from his social media accounts? Again, none of this is conspiracy theory. All of this has been confirmed by the evidence and eyewitnesses and law enforcement on the scene who are giving us this information. So let's recount. Why did the Secret Service, who had him in their sights 42 seconds before he fires on the president, not take the shot to take this guy out. They see a man with a rifle who's clearly not part of the Secret Service with a rifle on a rooftop. Why do you not shoot him? Why do you not take him out? Did someone tell the Secret Service to not take the shot? We'd love to know the answer to that. Why were eyewitnesses able to witness this individual climbing up a roof, using a ladder, carrying a rifle, and no one did anything about it? Why did the Secret Service rebuff the Trump campaign's requests for additional security, additional Secret Service detail? Why was that rebuffed? Should the director of the Secret Service be fired? Director Kimberly Cheadle. Another question we have, who's scrubbing Thomas Crook's social media accounts, removing content from his social media accounts? And another big question I have, was he on SSRIs? Was he on some sort of an antidepressant? Who prescribed that medication for him? And how far in advance were these threats known by law enforcement? Did the FBI have him on their watch list? Were they aware that he was building explosives in his parents' house? What information did they have ahead of time about this individual? All of this, I hope, will be explained to us, but will be revealed transparently. And the last thing that we should be doing is tamping down the rhetoric. We should be angry. We should be demanding answers. And I hope that we get them.
The CIA used mind control and conducted experiments on citizens and innocent unwilling participants all over the world, which is commonly referred to as MKUltra. This was also used by the CIA to create murders who were programmed and brainwashed by the CIA.
Tonight we report on a secret CIA research project carried out in Montreal in which mental patients felt they were used as the CIA's guinea pigs.
They kept you asleep for 23 days. And while I was asleep, they were shocking the heck out of me with electric shocks.
The CIA was interested in Dr. Cameron's work on psychic driving because it could give them an idea of where the personality could break or be stressed.
Those of us who were involved with trying to find out something about brainwashing, yes, this is the reason that we were interested in Dr. Cameron's work.
The American Central Intelligence Agency has been accused of manipulating citizens of countries all over the world, including Canada. At the moment, a number of Canadians are considering suing the CIA. They believe they are victims of covert CIA experiments. Tonight, two Canadians who feel the past 20 years of their lives were damaged by the CIA tell their stories publicly for the first time. They believe they were part of a CIA project called MKUltra, a research project so secret that even the Canadian government was not informed that the agency was funding activities in this country. The CIA was seeking a new weapon aimed not at the body, but at the mind. Americans became obsessed with brainwashing during the Korean War. Prisoners of war returned home denouncing the American way of life. Hearing them parroting propaganda, the CIA became convinced the communists had found the key to brainwashing. Now the Americans had to unlock the mystery of mind control.
There was great worry that the Soviets had developed rather esoteric and unusual methods of so-called brainwashing people. The purge trials.
Dr. John Gittinger was the CIA's chief psychologist for 25 years.
There was continued pressure put upon anybody within the agency in connection with trying to explain or understand brainwashing. So we were charged with rather an elaborate attempt to try to find out chemical, psychological, any kind of means that people could use to influence the behavior of the people.
Nothing seemed too bizarre. To find out if sex could be used in spying, the agency studied San Francisco prostitutes and their clients. Using unwitting human beings as their guinea pigs, the agency tried everything: drugs, hypnosis, electroshock. Under code names like MKUltra, the CIA spent 25 years and $25 million on secret mind control research. Brainwashing could be a powerful ideological weapon, and the U.S. had to have it. And when the agency didn't undertake its own studies, it funded someone else's. Thus, the search for mind control brought MKUltra to Canada, to Montreal. Even in the Cold War years of the late 50s and early 60s, most doctors and academics would have been embarrassed to have found that an organization of spies was openly paying for their research. So the CIA set up a number of fronts, respectable foundations like the Human Ecology Fund. Sounds innocent enough, but it was run by the CIA's brainwashing experts. Here at McGill University in Montreal, the fund found 3 projects worth financing. They supported an extensive study of witch doctors in Nigeria. How, investigators wondered, did native healers cure mental illness? What mysterious drugs and potions did they use?
Device used to bind up excited patients. A sleeping potion is then administered.
20 years ago, the Human Ecology Fund paid for this movie.
This soothes the patient's head.
But it was only recently that the man who made the film found out that he had been working with the CIA's money. The author of the Nigerian study is still at McGill University. News of his connection to the CIA came as quite a surprise to Dr. Raymond Prince.
I couldn't imagine why the CIA would be interested in my work in looking at indigenous healers in West Africa. That seemed really strange. That was my first reaction, you know, and I couldn't believe that, I couldn't understand how the CIA would be interested in that.
Because there were all kinds of beliefs that African witch doctors could put the hex on people. But anybody who makes a systematic study of what are the psychological factors that can produce anything from having a person run amok in Indonesia or die of the sickness from a witch doctor in Africa would certainly add to all of the knowledge that we were being able to accumulate about behavioral science techniques.
The Human Ecology Fund also helped set up the Transcultural Psychiatric Research Review. Edited at McGill, the journal continues to publish without CIA support. The largest MK Ultra research project, this one directly related to brainwashing, was carried out at the university's psychiatric hospital, the Allen Memorial Institute. Located atop Mount Royal in a mansion with the eerie name of Ravenscrag, the Allen Memorial was once the most prestigious mental hospital in Canada. The unorthodox treatments of its director caught the attention of the CIA in the mid-50s. Dr. Ewan Cameron, the first director of the Allen Memorial, ran the institute with an iron hand for 20 years. But Dr. Cameron remained an American citizen and left the Allen abruptly in 1964. He returned to the United States, where he died in 1967. An energetic, enigmatic man, Cameron was an internationally honored and respected psychiatrist, but he was not universally liked. Former colleague, Dr. Elliot Emanuel.
He was an authoritarian, ruthless, power-hungry, nervous, tense, angry man. Not very nice.
Much of Cameron's research went on in the stables next to the main hospital building. Here he had his subjects photographed before and after treatment. Dr. Cameron may not have known that the $60,000 research grant he received from the Human Ecology Fund really came from the CIA.
Rudolf Hess.
Nonetheless, it now seems ironic to some that Cameron was called to the Nuremberg trials to examine Rudolf Hess. For it was at Nuremberg, after Nazi doctors who experimented on prisoners of war were condemned, that a code of scientific ethics was adopted. Research must be completely safe, and research subjects must give full, voluntary consent. Documents recently released by the CIA reveal what research Cameron proposed. To make patients receptive to repetitive messages, Cameron suggested using chemical agents to break down ongoing patterns of behavior. Chemical agents like LSD. LSD was almost unknown in the late 50s and not yet widely tested. Despite the horrible hallucinations small doses can produce, Dr. Cameron left some of his patients to unsupervised LSD trips. In 1956, Bob Logie was 18 years old when his severe leg pains were diagnosed as psychosomatic, and he was sent to the Allen Memorial Institute. When Bob heard the news reports of CIA-funded research at the Allen, he sent for his medical records. They revealed several doses of LSD. Today, Bob Logie lives and works in Vancouver, but he's still angry.
I feel like I've been completely used. I feel like my mind has been completely invaded. I suppose if guinea pigs had feelings, they'd feel like I do.
LSD trips were terrifying to patients who had never heard of LSD and who had no way of knowing why their world was suddenly upside down. Hallucinations last for hours. Experts say this is what an acid trip would look like if it could be filmed.
The LSD was really horrifying, very horrifying, and they gave it to me for about 12 or 15 times. One minute I would see the doctor there, the next minute I wouldn't see him there, and they were asking me all kinds of questions, and I remember them telling me that I was getting smaller and smaller, and I really felt myself getting smaller. And they were bringing me back in time, way back, you know. At one point I almost felt like I was just about to be born, really, that far back in memory. And they were really, really probing, asking all kinds of questions, and I felt I didn't have any control. I had to answer. I didn't feel I had any control. I was completely, like they had complete control over me.
Bob's leg pains were eventually treated with cortisone, but the effects of the LSD stayed with him, and soon he was back in the hospital.
I just felt I couldn't cope. I couldn't adjust after the LSD, and I was having a hard time. I couldn't hold down a job for very long. I was going from one place to another, and the anxiety really built up. I just couldn't cope, and I went back.
The interest in this sort of chemical, this kind of magic, this shortcut weapon, prompted the CIA's interest in hallucinogens, particularly LSD?
Yeah, very definitely, because the first pressure was being placed on the idea that there was some kind of truth serum or truth drug or something on that. So the people who knew that end of the business, they were definitely beginning to look in terms of chemotherapy. And of course, to people in this day and age, it's very hard to believe that the period before 1960 was a period which was certainly not a chemical culture in this country and not a drug culture in any sense of the word.
With some patients, Dr. Cameron tried a drastic treatment called depatterning. Massive doses of electroshock, 20 times more intense than the standard shock treatments used today, were administered to patients who were kept sleeping for days. Dr. Cameron thought he could wipe out patients' sick behavior and leave the healthy personality intact. But first patients were to be so depatterned that some even forgot their toilet training. Not all the patients ever completely regained their memories. Dr. Peter Roper was a close colleague of Dr. Cameron's at the Allen.
Many people, but some would reach what Cameron would call the third stage of depatterning. With that method, others would need 2 treatments a day, maybe for a week or longer, before they got to the third stage.
What would characterize the third stage of depatterning?
Well, the third stage, as defined by Cameron, was a loss of ability to orientate themselves. They knew who they were, but they didn't know where they were, and they didn't know what age they were.
As you probably know, electroshock treatment has been given for depression for something like 40 years now. It's a very successful and useful treatment for severe depression that doesn't respond to other things. But depatterning is a use of electroshock treatment in a totally different way, in which instead of giving the shocks, say, 2 or 3 times a week, they're given 2 or 3 times a day for 3 or 4 weeks, reducing the patient to a sort of animal, vegetable state. from which it's hoped that they would recover in a more healthy state of mind. It didn't work.
To put patients to sleep for up to a month at a time, Dr. Cameron used a combination of depatterning and large doses of drugs. Individual taped messages were repeated to sleeping patients 15 hours a day in an effort to brainwash them back to health. Now, Cameron reasoned, with their negative memories obliterated, positive suggestions could be implanted. Suggestions like, begin to assert yourself, express your anger. Dr. Cameron called his technique psychic driving. Bob Logie had driving therapy when he returned to the Allen in 1959.
I was there for a while, and I thought, I don't want to stay here, and I started to run away from the hospital, and they grabbed me, and then they put me on sleep treatment. And now they kept you asleep for 23 days. And while I was asleep, they were shocking the heck out of me with electric shocks and playing tapes just over and over. I don't know what was on the tapes yet, but we're going to find out what was on the tapes through hypnosis.
The CIA was interested in Dr. Cameron's work on psychic driving because it could give them an idea of where the personality could break or be stressed.
Those of us who were involved with trying to find out something about brainwashing, yes, this is the reason that we were interested in Dr. Cameron's work.
Patients came to the Allen Memorial Institute from all across Canada. Dr. Ewan Cameron, it was said, would give them the best psychiatric care money could buy. But some of the patients had no idea that a lot of their treatment, the LSD, the massive doses of electric shock, the sleep therapy, was highly experimental.
When I was in the hospital in '59, my husband, that's when he told me he thought they were killing me, because he said it was every day and there's a special treatment which he doesn't know. I think there was some sleep. I was always asleep. He used to call the hospital. I couldn't have any visitors for 3 weeks, you see.
Hilda Bernston was at the Allen Memorial in 1959 as Dr. Cameron's patient. She's convinced that the sleep treatment she received was depatterning. Her memory remains severely damaged. Mrs. Bernston was an English war bride. She and her Canadian husband went to Montreal in 1945 to raise their family. After a nervous breakdown, she was hospitalized at the Allen.
It's 3 weeks that was out of my life as far as I'm concerned, because I can't remember anything about it. I didn't know my husband and my children, my brother-in-law and his wife. And my sister-in-law at that time, when she saw me, she cried. My brother-in-law told me this when she saw me. She's a registered nurse too, and she said she'd never seen such a change in a person in 3 weeks. But I looked really dreadful. I still can't remember my aunt being with us. I look at the pictures that we took when she was here. We took her to the New York, and we were at the museum there. I look at the pictures, and I still can't remember her being with us. And she was with me for 3 months. And this aunt was my mother's sister, who was very near and dear to me.
Dr. Emanuel thinks Cameron's use of extensive electroshock, depatterning, was somewhat unethical.
The quantity, the frequency, the intensity, and the sort of animal state to which it reduced the patients.
What you're really saying is that the doctor knows that by doing it that much to somebody, there's going to be an effect? Is that...
Indeed. And with little promise of cure. Hope, but as it turned out, it wasn't, and it didn't become an accepted psychiatric treatment.
So many patients were left with some amnesia after depatterning that the Allens stopped the treatment when Ewan Cameron left. Under the new director, Cameron's disciples would come to regret their enthusiastic use of depatterning. Dr. Peter Roper left the Allen Memorial in 1967. What were the circumstances of your leaving the Allen?
Somewhat questionable.
In what way?
The annual reappointment was not renewed in '67.
Dr. Cameron have anything to do with this, or was after he left?
Oh, that was after he left. He left in '64.
Did you have any disagreement about treatments given there?
I didn't disagree with anybody. I think there was the depatenting treatment was stopped, I think, in '65. So anybody that continued to do it after Cameron left didn't do it after 1965.
So you didn't do it after '65?
Oh, no.
I certainly know that an intelligent, ethical scientist today would not do an awful lot of things that an ethical scientist would do in those days.
How do you now feel about the use of involuntary subjects for CIA experiments or CIA-funded agency experiments?
I certainly think that it would be ridiculous in this day and age. No, I don't see any way that you would do that.
There was no informed consent. I would guess that, as I've just said, informed consent, as we now know it, was not a part of research at that time, and especially as regards the use of LSD, perhaps, or the depatenting, I doubt if those patients really knew what they were being led into.
Informed consent doesn't mean much to people who are mentally ill.
Not many people are so mentally disturbed that they can't understand that they're being given an experimental drug, or they're being given electroshock 3 times a day. People can understand that. It can be explained in simple words.
It had a great effect on my life. I mean, I have been sick before, and I've had treatment, but there were never any experience I had was like that I had in '59.
I've never been able to sleep without medication since the sleep treatment. I went through years and years and years of severe depressions. I dream about it. All my waking hours I think about it. It's eating me up. It really is.
I mean, if he was doing it and knew what he was doing for the benefit of the CIA, then I don't agree with this at all. I mean, why pick on me or anybody else? I don't like that.
It leaves me completely stunned. I don't know if I'll ever recover from it.
I was given a glass of Kool-Aid, and so were the other children. This Kool-Aid was spiked with LSD. It was horrible.
In the early days of the Cold War, the CIA ordered the creation of a secret program intended to find ways of mind control. They funded an army of psychiatric institutions across the United States and Canada to perform experiments on unsuspecting patients using psychedelic drugs, sensory deprivation, electroshock treatment, and more. The program was known by its codename, MKUltra. At the end of the Korean War, a number of freed American POWs came home seemingly brainwashed and espousing communist propaganda. American officials suspected that the soldiers had been subjected to what they thought were new communist mind control techniques. Alarmed by the situation, the newly formed CIA allocated $25 million for psychiatric experiments on human beings.
It was the most secret program ever conducted by the CIA in the United States. Patients at psychiatric hospitals, prisoners in federal institutions, and even people in the public were given drugs without their awareness or consent and experimented upon.
Initial projects within MKUltra included Operation Midnight Climax.
They established what were called safe houses, where prostitutes would lure men to these apartments. And then once the men were in the apartments, they were dosed with LSD. And then they were basically studied by CIA scientists, usually behind a two-way mirror.
Another common practice was the hosting and observing of LSD-induced parties with live music. These parties were called acid tests, and the culture that grew out of them played a key role in the development of the hippie and psychedelic movements a few years later. However, some of the most damaging experiments occurred at the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal, Canada. There, under the direction of infamous Scottish-American psychiatrist Dr. Ewan Cameron, unsuspecting patients, many of whom had common ailments such as postpartum depression, were experimented on with aggressive drug cocktails and extreme techniques.
My father was a victim of Dr. Cameron. He was a 27-year-old, healthy skier, canoeer, very athletic, and he had asthma. They told him if he went to the Allen Memorial, they could cure his asthma.
My father, Charles, was a patient of Dr. Cameron's. He had a trigeminal neuralgia, it's called, where there's a pain in the temple that radiates into the jaw that apparently is excruciatingly painful. They told him that it was psychosomatic, which it's not, but in those days, what did they know? So they sent him to a shrink. This shrink that he went to was working with Cameron, although we didn't know. So he put my father right into the program.
I was having trouble with my parents. My father and my stepmother decided to put me in the Allen Memorial Institute. They had no idea what went on in there. I was 16 when I was there.
Dr. Cameron pursued a concept he called depatterning, which was meant to reduce patients to an infantile psychological state wherein doctors could take advantage of the person's cognitive vulnerability to attempt to rebuild their mind under the doctor's control. A popular method of choice to achieve this was called psychic driving.
The day that my father was brought to the hospital, they immediately put him on insulin, to put him into like an insulin coma. They took clips from the interview with the shrink and put it on tape to run a loop under his pillow while he was put into this sleep treatment.
He also was put in an insulin coma for 36 days with a recording beside him saying that your mother hates you over and over and over and over and over.
That was beside my bed constantly, repeatedly 250,000 and 500,000 times.
Another common method was the use of extreme Page-Russell electroshock therapy.
Page-Russell shock treatment is approximately 40 to 75 times the strength of a normal shock treatment. So it's really designed to wipe out the memory.
He received 54 high voltage shock treatments, followed by 54 grand mal seizures.
After 27 days of this, they said that they were discouraged because he still had ties to his former life, in that he was asking to see his wife. They decided to give him more Page-Russell shock treatments and put him to sleep for another 30 days.
When patients were released from the Allen Memorial, they and their families' lives would never be the same again.
Well, there's a lot I could not remember after I got out of the Allen. When my family came, I was a zombie. I didn't even know who they were.
He never came out the same. He had a blank look in his eye. He didn't know who we were. He didn't know we were his daughters. He lost his job. We went into poverty after he came out.
He had said in his interview with the shrink that I was the apple of his eye. And after he came home, he started beating me not long after.
In 1973, the MKUltra program was terminated, and some of the evidence of its activities was systematically erased.
The whole thing was basically discovered because of a whistleblower named John Marks, who wrote the first book really about the program called The Search for the Manchurian Candidate. There were congressional hearings here in the United States in the mid-70s after it had been exposed. And during those hearings, the CIA finally admitted that this program existed. They admitted that it was probably not the right thing to do, but they feigned innocence.
Despite the congressional hearings and marginal interest in the subject in popular culture, most MKUltra survivors suffered in silence, taking their trauma with them to the grave. Today, having received no formal apology or compensation, the children of some survivors are pursuing a class action lawsuit against the institutions they deem responsible.
The CIA knew that it was breaking, every moral, ethical, and legal law in the books to do these experiments.
They all were behind it. They all knew what they were doing, but they weren't doing it out of care or love. They were doing it out of military and political reasons.
I am on medication now because of what happened to me when I was 16. I have not had any compensation or apology. I want everyone to know in Canada what went on in that horrible, horrible hospital.
While historians and survivors have exposed MKUltra's exploits to the world, much remains unknown about its extent and wider impact. Given the highly sensitive nature of the program's activity, it is likely this will remain the case for years to come.
People said in a recent poll that they're fearful of civil war in this country. Do you feel like we're close to that?
I mean, yes. Yeah.
In what way? I mean, we can't have a land war like we had in the 1860s, probably, right?
Keeping all illegal immigrants, it's going to happen no matter what.
The 47% of Americans in a recent poll said that they think there could be civil war in this country. Do you see that?
I'm in the Army. I don't want that. I don't want civil war.
Are you active duty?
I'm National Guard, but I'm going deployment this November of this year. And I don't want civil war. People is talking about war and things like that. People who don't know nothing about it. This is something that should never happen. I hope it never happen, because civil war or any type of war is a horrible thing. A lot of people are going to die. A lot of people are going to suffer. I don't even want to think about this, this type of thing, because civil war is a big word. It's a big word. It's better not even use it. But people is using it like for nothing. But I'm telling you, it's people who don't know nothing about war, about what it is, suffering, this type of things.
A recent poll said 47% of Americans think that there is going to be a civil war in this country. Do you agree with that?
Could happen with the turning point in this country and the way things are going and how bad it's gotten. I think the people are tired. I think they're fed up. And
with what specifically? I want to ask this question because if you look at the numbers, we have historically low unemployment. Inflation is coming down. The Fed is going to most likely be lowering interest rates. People are getting back to work and cities are opening up again. In general, I just want to know what the doom stuff is. Like what is the bad stuff?
I don't think that's true at all.
I'm not inventing that. I'm just going off the numbers we always go off of historically.
Yeah, I mean, where are these numbers coming from? Like, well, I think inflation's at the highest. I think
inflation is up, but it's coming down, is what I'm saying. And the same measurements that we've used for Reagan and Clinton and Obama and Trump and Bush and everybody, we're using now, as we always have. So I'm curious as to where the things are not good is coming from.
I mean, we got crime running rapid in the inner cities, in all of our democratic cities. We got, like I said, gas prices record high. Yeah, of course they're coming down now. Inflation's coming down now because we're getting close to the election. But the past 3 years, it's been a show, to say the least.
And do you blame the president for that?
100%. That's what it is.
Does President Biden love America?
I don't think so. No.
Can you turn to the left because is that Trump you have shaved into your head there? You must really love the guy then, huh?
I care about him because he loves America and he's different. He's not the regular politician guy, and that's what that's why it made me vote for my first time in my life in 2016.
You say he loves America, but he broke American law. Does that give you any pause about supporting a felon for president?
No, because it's all a scam with them about the courts.
Does that give you pause at all, voting for someone who was convicted of a felony?
Absolutely not. That was a sham trial, and Joe Biden showers with his daughter, so I'd much rather have somebody who has 34 false counts of felony against him than someone who showers with his preceding daughter.
Yeah, well, I don't know that part's true, but he does have the 34 counts. If you think it was a sham, what about the Hunter Biden trial? Do you think that was a sham as well?
Absolutely not. There was video evidence of his sister-in-law throwing the gun into the dumpster, and it was his gun, but cocaine residue found on the holster, so not a sham trial.
Question as to why that one wasn't a sham and the first one was. Whatever you think of the other potential trials he's going to have to face, that one seemed to have enough evidence to get 12 of our peers to convict him.
Well, the SEC refused to press charges against Trump for the same issue, and they're the ones that have jurisdiction over that matter.
Both do, but you're right.
Well, that's why.
Yeah.
Right. The federal government refused to press charges, and the federal government only press charges if they feel they can get a conviction, and they didn't feel like they could get a conviction, so they didn't press charges against them.
Well, they deferred actually to New York, right, which is what they do in practice.
It wasn't a state issue.
But okay, well, it happened in New York, and that becomes a state issue, right?
Sure. Yep.
And so I think the Fed said this really isn't a federal crime; it's a state crime. You're wearing a shirt with his picture on it. That's his mugshot picture when he surrendered to the police, and underneath it says "Never surrendered," but that's the day he surrendered. Why is there pride in a felon president?
You believe he's a felon?
Well, I mean, I'm saying by law he is. He was convicted. That's what.
But when you look at that trial, the whole trial thing, the judge, he basically said, don't go off of the evidence, go off of your heart. Which is basically saying, like, if you don't like this guy, vote him as guilty. And the judge's daughter is literally selling Joe Biden merch at the same time as this trial is going on. If that doesn't sound rigged to you, like the election was in 2020.
You think the election was rigged?
Oh, 100%.
What makes you say that?
What makes me say that? Maybe the fact that whenever Trump was like all these thousands of votes up, they said, "Oh, we're having problems currently. Let's pause this."
Right, but that's because there were so many mail-in ballots because of the pandemic.
Why was there so many mail-in
The pandemic, because people didn't want to vote in person.
But every one of these mail-in ballots was Democrat.
Well, that's not so.
That's not what?
That's not so. They weren't all.
It was almost every mail-in ballot was almost for Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's not so, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm more asking if you would, if you said you thought it was rigged, that's your position.
I know. It's not I thought. I know it was rigged.
Well, neither of us. Okay. The courts.
Is it a fact? No.
Yeah. Right. Okay. That's okay. If it's a fact, let's leave it at that. What is it that excites you about President Trump?
His business economics, like his business lifestyle. And
but ma'am, can I ask you, like, he was just convicted of a felony in court because of the way he conducted business, in a sense, bookkeeping and covering something up. Does that give you pause at all?
No, it doesn't, because I don't know much about it, and it just kind of looked like they may have tried to frame him or pin it on him, because it's like, how come that didn't occur prior to the election, like them seeking him out for those offenses prior to the election. So I don't know, it just seems kind of fishy. And I feel like in life, majority of people do things wrong, and I just feel like it's not something necessarily like that we have to.
You think the majority of the people do things wrong?
Half. Probably half. No one's perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
The CIA's appalling human experiments with mind control. On April 10, 1953, Allen Dulles, the newly appointed director of the CIA, delivered a speech to a gathering of Princeton alumni. Though the event was mundane, global tensions were running high. The Korean War was coming to an end, and earlier that week, the New York Times had published a startling story asserting that American POWs returning from the country may have been converted by communist brainwashers. Some GIs were confessing to war crimes, like carrying out germ warfare against the communists, a charge the US categorically denied. Others were reportedly so brainwashed that they had refused to return to the United States at all. As if that weren't enough, the US was weeks away from secretly sponsoring the overthrow of a democratically elected leader in Iran. Watch full episodes of America's Book of Secrets online. Dulles had just become the first civilian director of an agency growing more powerful by the day, and the speech provided an early glimpse into his priorities for the CIA. In the past few years, we have become accustomed to hearing much about the battle for men's minds, the war of ideologies, he told the attendees. I wonder, however, whether we clearly perceive the magnitude of the problem, whether we realize how sinister the battle for men's minds has become in Soviet hands, he continued. We might call it, in its new form, brain warfare. Dulles proceeded to describe the Soviet brain perversion techniques as effective, but abhorrent and nefarious. He gestured to the American POWs returning from Korea, shells of the men they once were, parroting the communist propaganda they had heard cycled for weeks on end. He expressed fears and uncertainty. Were they using chemical agents? Hypnosis? Something else entirely? We in the West, the CIA director conceded, are somewhat handicapped in brain warfare. This sort of non-consensual experiment, even on one's enemies, was antithetical to American values, Dulles insisted, as well as antithetical to what should be human values. Allen W. Dulles, director of the Central Intelligence Agency at an executive session of the Joint Congressional Atomic Energy Committee. Credit, Bettman Getty Images. fear of brainwashing and a new breed of brain warfare terrified and fascinated the American public throughout the 1950s, spurred both by the words of the CIA and the stories of brainwashed GIs returning from China, Korea, and the Soviet Union. Newspaper headlines like "New Evil Seen in Brainwashing" and "Brainwashing versus Western Psychiatry" offered sensational accounts of new mind control techniques and technologies that no man could fully resist. The paranoia began to drift into American culture, with books like The Manchurian Candidate and The Naked Lunch playing on themes of unhinged scientists and vast political conspiracies. The idea of brainwashing also provided many Americans with a compelling, almost comforting, explanation for communism's swift rise, that Soviets used the tools of brainwashing not just on enemy combatants, but on their own people. Why else would so many countries be embracing such an obviously backward ideology? American freedom of the mind versus Soviet mind control became a dividing line as stark as the Iron Curtain. How did a secret government mind control program inadvertently fuel the use of psychedelic drugs in the 1960s? MKUltra. 3 days after his speech decrying Soviet tactics, Dulles approved the beginning of MKUltra, a top-secret CIA program for the covert use of biological and chemical materials. American values made for good rhetoric, but Dulles had far grander plans for the agency's Cold War agenda. MKUltra's mind control experiments generally centered around behavior modification via electroshock therapy, hypnosis, polygraphs, radiation, and a variety of drugs, toxins, and chemicals. These experiments relied on a range of test subjects, some who freely volunteered, some who volunteered under coercion, and some who had absolutely no idea they were involved in a sweeping defense research program. From mentally impaired boys at a state school, to American soldiers, to sexual psychopaths at a state hospital, MKUltra's programs often preyed on the most vulnerable members of society. The CIA considered prisoners especially good subjects, as they were willing to give consent in exchange for extra recreation time or commuted sentences. Whitey Bulger, a former organized crime boss, wrote of his experience as an inmate test subject in MKUltra. 8 convicts in a panic and paranoid state, Bulger said of the 1957 tests at the Atlanta Penitentiary where he was serving time. Total loss of appetite. Hallucinating. The room would change shape. Hours of paranoia and feeling violent. We experienced horrible periods of living nightmares and even blood coming out of the walls. Guys turning to skeletons in front of me. I saw a camera change into the head of a dog. I felt like I was going insane. Bulger claimed he had been injected with LSD. Lysergic acid diethylamide, or acid, had become one of the CIA's key interests for its brain warfare program, as the agency theorized it could be useful in interrogations. In the late 1940s, the CIA received reports that the Soviet Union had engaged in intensive efforts to produce LSD, and that the Soviets had attempted to purchase the world's supply of the chemical. One CIA officer described the agency as literally terrified of the Soviets' LSD program, largely because of the lack of knowledge about the drug in the United States. This was the one material that we had ever been able to locate that really had potential fantastic possibilities if used wrongly, the officer testified. With the advent of MKUltra, the government's interest in LSD shifted from a defensive to an offensive orientation. Agency officials noted that LSD could be potentially useful in gaining control of bodies whether they were willing or not. The CIA envisioned applications that ranged from removing people from Europe in the case of a Soviet attack to enabling assassinations of enemy leaders. On November 18, 1953, a group of 10 scientists met at a cabin located deep in the forests of Maryland. After extended discussions, the participants agreed that to truly understand the value of the drug, an unwitting experiment would be desirable. Doctors Harry Williams and Carl Pfeiffer conducting an LSD experiment. The CIA remained keenly aware of how the public would react to any discovery of MKUltra. Even if they believed these programs to be essential to national security, they must remain a tightly guarded secret. How would the CIA possibly explain dosing unassuming Americans with LSD? Precautions must be taken not only to protect operations from exposure to enemy forces, but also to conceal these activities from the American public in general, wrote the CIA's Inspector General in 1957. The knowledge that the agency is engaging in unethical and illicit activities would have serious repercussions in political and diplomatic circles and would be detrimental to the accomplishment of its mission. Operation Midnight Climax. The CIA's initial experiments with LSD were fairly simple, if shockingly unethical. The agency generally dosed single targets, finding volunteers when they could, sometimes slipping the drug into the drinks of fellow CIA employees. Over time, these LSD experiments grew increasingly elaborate. Perhaps the most notorious of these projects was Operation Midnight Climax. In 1955, on 225 Chestnut Street, San Francisco, the CIA was devoting substantial attention to decorating a bedroom. George White oversaw the interior renovations. Not much of a decorator, White had a storied career in the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. When the CIA moved into drug experiments, bringing White on board became a top priority. White hung up pictures of French cancan dancers and flowers. He draped lush red bedroom curtains over the windows. He framed a series of Toulouse-Lautrec posters with black silk mats. For a middle-aged drug bureaucrat, each item evoked sex and glamour. George White wasn't building a normal bedroom, he was building a trap. White then hired a Berkeley engineering student to install bugging equipment and a two-way mirror. White sat behind the mirror, martini in hand, and waited for the action to begin. Prostitutes would lure unsuspecting Johns to the bedroom, where the men would be dosed with LSD and their actions observed by White from beyond the mirror. As payment for their services, the sex workers received small amounts of cash, as well as a guarantee from White that he'd intercede when the women inevitably had run-ins with law enforcement in the future. George Hunter White. Though the CIA piloted these safe houses as a stage for testing the effects of LSD, White's interest shifted to another element of his observations, the sex. The San Francisco house became the center of what one writer called the CIA carnal operations, as officials began asking new questions about how to work with prostitutes, how they could be trained, and how they would handle state secrets. The agency also analyzed when in the course of a sexual encounter information could best be extracted from a source, eventually concluding that it was immediately after sex. But perhaps unsurprisingly, much of White's actions were driven by pure voyeurism. "I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, White later said. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest? The demise of MKUltra. The CIA's experiments with LSD persisted until 1963 before coming to a fairly anticlimactic end. In the spring of 1963, John Vance, a member of the CIA Inspector General's staff, learned about the project's surreptitious administration to unwitting non-voluntary human subjects. Though the MKUltra directors tried to convince the CIA's independent audit board that the research should continue, the Inspector General insisted the agency follow new research ethics guidelines and bring all the programs on non-consenting volunteers to an end. In 1977, Senator Edward Kennedy oversaw congressional hearings investigating the effects of MKUltra. Congress brought in a roster of ex-CIA employees for questioning, interrogating them about who oversaw these programs, how participants were identified, and if any of these programs had been continued. The hearings turned over a number of disturbing details, particularly about the 1953 suicide of Drive Frank Olson, an Army scientist who jumped out of a hotel window several days after unwittingly consuming a drink spiked with LSD. Amid growing criminalization of drug users, and just a few years after President Nixon declared drug abuse as public enemy number one, the ironies of the US's troubling experimentation with drugs appeared in sharp relief. But throughout the hearings, Congress kept hitting roadblocks. CIA staffers claimed they couldn't remember details about many of the human experimentation projects, or even the number of people involved. The obvious next step would be to consult the records, but that presented a small problem. In 1973, amid mounting inquiries, the director of MKUltra told workers it would be a good idea if the MKUltra files were destroyed. Citing vague concerns about the privacy and embarrassment of participants, the men who crafted MKUltra effectively eradicated the paper record for one of the United States' most obviously illegal undertakings. A program born in secrecy would hold onto many of its secrets forever.